Deep in the night of 2139, Shi Feng sat motionless in his mansion in Jinhai City's green bamboo district. A folder rested in his hands. Beyond the French window, the pool lay still, while frustration and unwillingness churned behind his silence. This was no ordinary fired employee. Shi Feng had captained Shadow, one of Jinhai City's top 4 gaming workshops. Players knew him as the Sword Magician. He had commanded tens of thousands and led Shadow to establish 10 city-states in God's domain. Before he could enjoy that glory, one decision ended it. Shi Feng opposed Shadow's plan to join the Super Guild World Dominators. Lan Hua Financial Group answered at once. Delete his level 200 Sword King account, then report to finance for his settlement. His reward was 5 million credits in this mansion. To anyone else, it sounded like wealth. Beside the money-generating kingdom of 10 city-states, it was not even a drop in the ocean. Shi Feng had sacrificed everything for the game, only to pave the road for someone else. And a phone dragged Shi Feng awake. The caller was Blackie, a familiar contact, but his words made no sense. Fired? Shadow had not recruited anyone yet. Blackie told Brother Feng to hurry over, then ended the call before Shi Feng could force out an answer. Shi Feng stared at the device. It was an old, battered iPhone 6. His phone should have been an iPhone 12. The impossible call was no longer the only problem. He lifted his gaze, and the room around him was just as wrong. The place was barely 15 square meters. Gaming strategy books lay everywhere. An ancient laptop sat over the study table, clothes spilled through the wardrobe, and a mirror waited inside it. This was not the spacious bedroom where Shi Feng had gone to sleep. The face in the mirror was painfully familiar. Shi Feng sprang up and rushed closer. He checked the reflection again and again, but it would not change. Somehow, the defeated veteran from 2139 had become his younger self. Memory supplied the next answer. Shi Feng had rented this broken-down room 10 years ago for more than 6 months, so he could attend university and play God's domain. Only after earning money in the game had he escaped to a larger condominium. Those years had not been hard for Shi Feng alone. His parents were already struggling, yet they took on debt to send him to university. Every month they still gave him enough to live, accepting the suffering themselves so their son could continue. Shi Feng remembered the date with certainty, August 5, 2139. Yet everything around him insisted on April of 2129 when he was still at university. He shook his head, trying to wake himself, while a forbidden hope began to take shape. Hope was dangerous, so Shi Feng demanded proof. A phone's date could be falsified. The internet could not. He crossed the cramped room, powered up the outdated laptop, and began searching the web for something the world itself would have to confirm. Minutes later, every result agreed. Today was April 19, 2129. Then Shi Feng opened the official page for God's domain. Its long-awaited release was still ahead, April 25, exactly 6 days away. The future he remembered had not happened yet. Shi Feng stared at the report until his eyes burned. There was no remaining explanation to hide behind. He had truly returned 10 years into the past. Tears slipped from the corners of his eyes as he finally spoke the impossible truth aloud. He had been reincarnated. Regret came first, then sadness, then a joy too large to name. The mansion, the betrayal, and 10 ruined years suddenly felt like a dream. But the insects outside, the cold room, and the tears on Shi Feng's face were real. Cold air and the insects beyond the room left Shi Feng no refuge in disbelief. Then his gaze fell to the family photo on his phone. It had been taken when he entered university, but only now did he truly look at the two people beside him. His parents already had white hair. Fine wrinkles marked the corners of his mother's eyes, and neither face held its old liveliness. Shi Feng had lived beside those changes without understanding them. Given another look, the photograph seemed to accuse him with everything he had missed. In his first life, another year and a half passed after God's domain opened before he understood the danger. Debt, relentless labor, and stress had worn his parents down until both became gravely ill. By the time Shi Feng noticed, concern was no longer enough. They needed treatment costing millions of credits. Shi Feng had only been a squad captain in Shadow. His earnings could not cover the treatment, and every attempt to gather more still fell short. His parents died a few months later. He eventually earned millions, but money arriving after their deaths could purchase nothing except a regret that never left him. But fate had returned him to the starting point. This time, the money could arrive before the funeral. Shi Feng wiped away his tears and laughed through the pain. He would change everything, earn enough to cure his mother and father, and give them a life untouched by constant worry. Blackie called again, urging him to hurry before Shadow's university test closed. The old Shi Feng would have rushed. This one did not. He dressed, tidied himself, and left at an easy pace, already thinking beyond a recruitment opportunity whose entire future he understood too well. On the way, Shi Feng weighed the path waiting at the university. Shadow was no mystery to him. He knew where joining it led. Reincarnation meant more than correcting isolated mistakes. At the first decisive fork in his career, he would refuse the old road and build something under his own control. At teaching Block 1, Shi Feng immediately found Blackie. Thin, tall, and tan, the young man was pacing the hallway in a panic. The moment he saw Shi Feng, relief broke across his face. Registration had not closed yet. If they hurried, Blackie insisted they could still sign up. Shi Feng shook his head. He was not joining Shadow. Instead, he intended to open his own workshop, and he wanted Blackie beside him. The answer was so far from what Blackie expected that the hallway's urgency seemed to stop. This was not a delay. Shi Feng was abandoning the safe option entirely. Shi Feng had not chosen him on impulse. They had met in another virtual reality game, survived challenge after challenge, and become brothers in everything but blood. Blackie lacked exceptional gaming talent, but Shi Feng remembered the administrator who could keep 100,000 guild members organized. That ability was exactly what his future workshop needed. Shi Feng also knew why Blackie had come to Shadow. His family was struggling, and professional gaming was supposed to pay his living expenses. Shi Feng currently had no money, workplace, or staff to offer him, so he waited without pressure, prepared to accept a refusal from the friend whose future he valued. Full minute passed before Blackie looked up. One gaming helmet cost 8,000 credits. A workshop needed at least 6 people, then a workplace, salaries, and continued investment. Even the initial setup would demand 70 or 80,000. Shi Feng's confidence could not make those expenses disappear. Shi Feng's immediate answer was a 10-day gamble. Secure access first, then produce the 16,000 credits needed for 2 helmets. To Blackie, that was madness. New virtual games did not pay at launch, and even successful players normally waited months. They did not have months, not if they abandoned recruitment today. Still, something about Shi Feng made Blackie hesitate. His friend was usually impatient. Today he seemed immovable, composed, and certain, as if he had already seen the danger and the route through it. Blackie could not know where that certainty came from. He could only decide whether their years of trust were worth following. At last, Blackie gave in. Shi Feng was the boss. They would start the workshop together. Relief instantly loosened Shi Feng's expression. He clapped Blackie on the shoulders and welcomed back the brother he remembered. His future organization now had its first partner, even if it still possessed nothing else. Blackie's agreement did not solve the first physical problem. Where were the gaming helmets? Without them, the workshop could not even enter God's domain. Shi Feng's tightened brow relaxed. He remembered a resource available precisely because they were still students, a university trial program that Blackie had overlooked. Every university had a distribution point for God's domain's student trial. By showing their student identification, Shi Feng and Blackie could each obtain a gaming helmet free for 10 days. The workshop did not need 16,000 credits today. It needed to turn 10 borrowed days into enough money to survive afterward. Blackie's face went ashen. What happened after 10 days? By then, they would have missed other workshops' recruitment, yet the helmets would still cost money they did not possess. 10 days in God's domain sounded like nothing. Following Shi Feng might be the right choice, but as they turned toward the distribution point, Blackie could not yet see how. 16,000 credits in 10 days was beyond even a professional gamer with a team. Blackie knew it. Shi Feng only smiled, clapped his new partner on the shoulder, and told him, "Leave the money problem to me." They collected the trial helmets. Then Shi Feng spent every credit he had left on 2 large boxes of instant noodles and stored them beneath his desk. It was food for more than 10 days, and proof that he intended to waste none of them. Shi Feng briefed Blackie on what he could safely explain, then waited. At 9 in the evening on April 25th, glimmers stirred in the dark room. Lying on his bed, he pressed the helmet start button. God's domain, here I come. System was built for a sleepless race. God's domain could run while its players slept, and every real hour became 2 inside. An in-game day lasted 48 hours, 30 of daylight and 18 of night, with real-world night aligned to virtual day. A multicolored tunnel carried Shi Feng into a solemn golden temple. A female angel no larger than his palm flew toward him on 4 pairs of wings. She introduced herself as Gabriel, the navigation angel, and began presenting God's domain's categories and jobs. Shi Feng's course resolved into the swordsman path, and a map of Starmoon Kingdom unfolded before him. God's domain launched worldwide for hundreds of millions, across lands 2 or 3 times Earth size. Yet residents still restricted each player to cities in their own country. Shi Feng did not browse. He chose White River City, the place he knew best. It ranked 5th in Starmoon Kingdom and anchored the north. Smaller workshops favored it because they could grow without immediately colliding with the largest guilds. His selection was already strategy. Temple vanished. Shi Feng materialized before a church in Red Leaf Town, where disorderly medieval buildings framed streets alive with NPCs. He now looked like a penniless novice swordsman, gray leather armor on his body, a novice sword hanging at his waist. All around him, new players chased NPCs for the first hint of a quest or sprinted toward the wilderness to fight. Shi Feng merely smiled at the familiar town. Everyone else feared losing the opening seconds. He knew exactly which advantages were worth taking first. Every level granted 4 free attribute points, and their use shaped a player's style. Strength raised physical power and attack weight. Agility improved attack and movement speed. Endurance expanded health and stamina. Intelligence increased magical power and mana. Vitality accelerated health and mana recovery. Swordsman dealt physical damage, so nearly everyone prioritized strength. Shi Feng had done the same before, 2 points to strength, 1 to endurance, 1 to agility at every level. It was safe, balanced, and painfully ordinary. This time, he refused to repeat it. Without hesitation, Shi Feng pressed agility's plus sign 4 times. Every free point went into it. Agility rose to 7, attack speed and movement speed both became 4. Even assassins rarely opened this way because more strength promised easier damage and faster leveling. Shi Feng knew what the launch crowd did not. For melee jobs, agility was the strongest early choice. The secret would take weeks to spread, leaving countless players regretting their first levels. He would not wait for the world to learn what his previous life had already taught him. With all 4 attribute points committed to agility, Shi Feng looked across Red Leaf Town's central plaza. Another wave of players had already arrived. Green player markers packed the air so densely that the yellow symbols identifying NPCs nearly vanished behind them. His voice communicator chimed. The caller name read Black Cloud, but the voice belonged to Blackie. Bursting with launch day excitement, Blackie announced that he had chosen Cursimancer and been sent to Falling Moon Town, then eagerly asked where Shi Feng was. Shi Feng told him to come to Red Leaf Town and promised to help him level. Blackie recoiled. The map showed a 7-hour journey. With 16,000 credits due in 10 days, wasting the opening hours sounded insane. Leveling separately until level 10 seemed far safer. Shi Feng only told him not to worry. The lost time would be recovered quickly. That confidence changed Blackie's anger into excitement. He guessed that Brother Feng possessed beta tester information. Shi Feng did not expose the true source of his certainty, but Blackie trusted the advantage and set out. Shi Feng's own search led away from the players fighting over visible NPCs and into the company of Red Leaf Town's beggars. To an ordinary newcomer, feeding them might look like the beginning of a secret reward. Shi Feng remembered exactly why that hope was dangerous. In his previous life, one player had kept granting their wishes. Food led to items, then to increasingly expensive items until more than 10 requests had been fulfilled. The beggars gave nothing back. Shi Feng refused to reenact that joke. He drew his novice sword and barked, "Get lost." A middle-aged vagrant lay in the newly exposed corner. At first glance, he looked no different from the others. The distinction was in his bearing, an unyielding integrity. He alone had not begged. Shi Feng sheathed his threat, approached, and formally asked whether the man needed help. Vagrant said he had not eaten for 5 days and asked for food. Shi Feng smiled faintly, then answered with perfect seriousness. Unfortunately, he could not grant that wish. The response should have provoked outrage. Instead, the man merely sighed and fell silent. And Shi Feng offered a different arrangement. If the man paid an appropriate price, he would provide the food. The vagrant admitted he had no money, but anticipation returned to his eyes. Help him with one task, he promised, and Shi Feng would receive sufficient compensation. The answer was breathtakingly direct. Kill Cross, the mayor of Red Leaf Town. Cross was not a novice target. He was a level 15 elite, and level 25 guards stood beside him. For a newly arrived swordsman, the request sounded less like work than a sentence of death. Shi Feng accepted the hidden opportunity and obtained Sherlock's unique quest. Barely more than 10 minutes had passed since God's domain opened, and Red Leaf Town still had no player who had received a normal quest. Shi Feng had already secured something incomparably rarer and far more dangerous. The quest was damnably difficult, but its reward was rich enough to make top-tier players drool even after a month of progress. That was the scale of Shi Feng's reincarnated advantage. While everyone else searched blindly, he could reach tomorrow's treasures during the game's opening minutes. Shi Feng had once led thousands in Shadow Workshop and helped build 10 city-states. He remembered the leveling routes and money-making methods that let great workshops grow. This time, he would compound that knowledge into his own foundation, not waste hours fighting for normal quests or monsters already outnumbered by players. Shi Feng had chosen Sherlock's absurd unique quest precisely because every ordinary opportunity was buried beneath crowds. His memories supplied the method, but not the materials. To put that method into motion, the penniless novice first needed more copper. God's domain gave each beginner only 10 copper coins. That could buy HP or MP refreshments, but not a weapon or useful equipment. At launch, every coin mattered, which meant information worth a faster start could be sold for a fortune. At the 2-storied town hall, hundreds of players had formed a long line. Everyone assumed the mayor must offer valuable quests, and this queue was orderly enough to move. Even so, anyone joining the back could lose a precious hour of the game's opening. Simple, honest-looking warrior raised a hand and told the newcomer to queue before he caused an uproar. Shi Feng answered that he was not there for a quest. The warrior's guarded stare made his disbelief plain. To him, Shi Feng looked exactly like a shameless line cutter. Shi Feng repeated that he wanted no quest, then advised the warrior to leave. Waiting here would be pointless. That claim finally caught the man's interest. If he could spend the next hour grinding without competition, the experience alone could beat a meager quest reward. Shi Feng leaned closer and priced the secret at 20 copper. The spot offered more than experience. After a day, its materials could bring over 40 copper, and one lucky equipment drop could be worth far more. To a launch day warrior, that was the promise of a commanding lead. Only Snow asked the obvious question, was this a trick? Shi Feng did not demand blind trust. Pay 10 copper now, test the location, and send the other 10 only if it proved real. Then, as if the sale meant nothing to him, Shi Feng turned and walked away. Shi Feng had gone only a few steps when the warrior stopped him. Calling him an expert, Lonely Snow committed to the gamble and transferred 10 copper. Shi Feng accepted the deposit and rewarded that trust with a genuinely useful location, even if reaching it required extra travel. Before leaving, the warrior introduced himself as Lonely Snow and sent a friend request. Shi Feng accepted. Lonely Snow promised to mail the remaining 10 copper as soon as he earned it, then abandoned the queue and dashed happily toward his new grinding route. With enough money at last, Shi Feng went straight to the fruit stall beside Town Hall and lifted a ripe red tomato. Fruits and vegetables could restore HP and MP, and even tasted good, but their recovery was so poor that cash-starved beginners considered buying them wasteful. The price was 2 copper each. Shi Feng immediately ordered 10 and paid all 20 copper. To everyone else, he had converted a beginner's entire fortune into weak recovery food. To Shi Feng, the 10 ripe tomatoes were exactly the preparation his impossible quest required. Shi Feng carried the 10 tomatoes into Town Hall without joining the line. The waiting players erupted. They shouted for the newcomer to queue and demanded to know why he thought he could walk past everyone. Their orderly patience turned instantly into collective fury. Furious players might have attacked him if violence inside town did not risk jail. That rule held them back while Shi Feng continued straight toward the town mayor. He had spent every available copper on 10 tomatoes, and now the baffling strategy behind that purchase was about to begin. Inside Town Hall, Shi Feng answered the furious queue with an easy smile. He was not there to receive a quest, he said. He was only taking a look. Then he turned away from the players and fixed his attention on the fat mayor, Cross. Cross's status explained why the crowd expected disaster. He was a friendly level 15 elite with 2400 HP and 1500 MP. At this stage of God's domain, not one player could beat him. Even an entire team would have no chance. Instead of drawing his sword, Shi Feng produced a ripe red tomato and took a bite. The players stared. Each tomato cost 2 coppers, a luxury this early in the game. Had he marched into Town Hall merely to flaunt how rich he was? Halfway through the tomato, Shi Feng suddenly threw it. The fruit struck Cross squarely in the face and burst into bright red pulp. A system notice appeared. Cross's favorability toward Shi Feng had fallen by 100 points. The ridiculous snack had become a weapon. Shi Feng was not finished. Another tomato flew, then more, each impact driving Cross's favorability lower. Shi Feng called him a hypocrite, a fatty, and a bloodsucker unfit to be mayor. Soon red juice streamed down Cross's body, sharpening the rage on his face. Sight should have been funny, but nobody laughed. Town Hall went silent. Only 20 minutes after launch, a player was attacking the beginner's area boss and insulting the ruler of Red Leaf Town. The crowd wondered whether Shi Feng had chosen jail, death, and exile all at once. At the final instant, Shi Feng moved. He drew the novice sword and braced it across his body. Cross's fist crashed into the blade and hurled him backward. Shi Feng flipped in the air, landed like a cat, and remained alive, though the blow had stripped away 84 HP. Novice sword had paid a price too. Its durability fell by 1, and 0 would make it useless. Around Shi Feng, players drew a collective breath. The man they had dismissed as a reckless rookie had just reduced a level 15 elite's lethal blow to survivable damage. Cross roared for the insect to die. Then his clothes tore apart. Pitch-black fur spread over his body, sharp fangs emerged, and the mayor became a werewolf before the entire hall. The players' assumptions shattered. Red Leaf Town's friendly authority was an evil creature in disguise. Revelation activated the real trap. Once Cross showed his true form, the 2 guards stopped being obstacles and became Shi Feng's execution force. They intercepted the werewolf and locked him in close combat, while Cross kept fighting past them for another chance to kill Shi Feng. Sherlock's request had only looked impossible. Its true test was to attack Cross and survive his first strike. After the disguise broke, the guards would do the rest. A player had discovered that method in Shi Feng's previous life and proudly revealed it. Now Shi Feng had claimed the solution first. Cross was more than a monster. He was a spy for the forces of evil, proof that even friendly NPCs could lie. One guard struck with Bone Crusher, the other with Thundering Strike, and Cross's movement speed plummeted. He still hunted Shi Feng, but Shi Feng's 5 points of movement speed kept him alive. Guards had already torn through more than 2,000 of Cross's HP. As the black-furred werewolf neared death, the watching players grew restless. They saw level 15 elite and imagined valuable drops. Shi Feng, hidden at a safe distance, knew they were chasing a prize the system would never let them touch. At 100 HP, every hopeful looter rushed Cross at once. Shi Feng dashed too, but unlike them, he could have attacked and chose not to risk it. A guard's blade finished Cross first. In the same instant, Shi Feng seized the quest-authorized mayor's insignia and disappeared into the bodies around him. Rookies exploded in complaints. Why could no one hit the mayor? Why had a level 15 elite dropped nothing? More experienced voices answered harshly. Cross still appeared friendly to them, and city NPCs awarded neither EXP nor loot. Only Shi Feng's active quest had created an exception for the insignia. Cross's death was permanent. Players who already held his quests could finish their objectives and still have nowhere to submit them. Newcomers could no longer receive anything from him. Red Leaf Town had lost its mayor. Shi Feng did not care. His concern was the insignia and the waiting man in the dark alley. Sherlock's gratitude was immediate and deeply personal. Cross's death had finally avenged his friend. He accepted the mayor's insignia, then placed a delicate little box in Shi Feng's hands, saying its contents should help him. With the exchange complete, Sherlock left the dark alley carrying the proof of revenge. System confirmed Sherlock's request complete. 2,000 EXP, 20 free mastery points, and 1 luxurious ornament box. The reward was far beyond an ordinary launch quest. Light surged around Shi Feng as the EXP carried him directly to level 1, leaving him only 1,000 EXP from level 2. Only 30 minutes after God's Domain opened, Shi Feng was Red Leaf Town's highest level player. Normally, level 1 demanded 1,000 EXP. Level 0 monsters gave only 3 each, while travel, recovery, and fierce competition consumed hours. 6 or 7 hours was optimistic. In the launch crush, more than 10 was ordinary. Shi Feng's delight carried a question. Had finishing the quest at level 0 improved it? In his previous life, the known completer received the same EXP, but only 10 mastery points and a delicate ornament box. Shi Feng had received 20 points and the superior luxurious box. His early completion had made remembered history pay twice as well. 20 free mastery points were not minor bookkeeping. In God's Domain, even a quest awarding 3 to 5 was rare. These points would directly shape Shi Feng's weapon growth, and he had received a stockpile before ordinary players had even reached level 1. For now, he left every point unspent and turned to the box. Sight inside let Shi Feng breathe again. It was still the ring of gravity. He lifted it carefully and inspected the result. Level 0. Mysterious Iron Rank. Strength +2, Agility +1, Endurance +1. Its skill, Gravity Liberation, could drastically reduce his gravity for 30 seconds with a 5-minute cooldown. Shi Feng could hardly contain his excitement. Players began with worthless trash gear. Even common equipment was costly, bronze was rare, and mysterious iron normally came from bosses. The ring history remembered was only bronze, with strength +1 and 15 seconds of liberation. His version doubled that duration, improved 3 attributes, and shattered his expectations. The necklace beside Shi Feng's new ring was only gray grade. That did not make it worthless. NPC merchants coveted such items, so he treated the necklace as capital rather than equipment and converted it into 60 coppers. Shi Feng equipped the Ring of Gravity, then committed all 4 ability points from leveling to agility. His panel jumped to 12 agility, 5 attack speed, and 6 movement speed, nearly the mobility of a pure agility assassin at his level. His body already felt livelier. Mayor Cross would no longer reduce him to that earlier sorry scramble. Better still, level 3 would bring agility to 20 and unlock fast and nimble, mobility worthy of the martial experts in old wuxia stories. Next came mastery. Shi Feng placed 15 points into one-handed sword mastery and saved 5. At 20 total, Apprentice became basic swordsman and one-handed damage rose by 10%. Intermediate swordsman still stood 30 mastery points away. Mastery and regular attacks were only a swordsman's foundation. Real flexibility came from skills, and the more useful ones he gathered, the more damage his expertise could produce. With reincarnated knowledge and the Ring of Gravity, rapid leveling now depended on expanding that arsenal. Trade area was already loud with offers for high-ranking equipment, some buyers even promising real-world credits. Workshop and guild logistics staff had planted purchasing stalls along the road. Shi Feng ignored the noise and kept moving toward a guarded 2-story building. Sign read Black Market. High-ranking gnomes guarded the entrance to Red Leaf Town's darker entertainment district. Inside, Shi Feng passed the gnome auction house, then descended to 2 basement fields, the battle arena and the challenge race. Players screamed encouragement at an assassin on the field, their red eyes more gambler than spectator. The trial erased outside advantages. Every attribute became 10, skills shut down, and equipment lost its power. Victory meant crossing 30 yards under gnome musket fire using only blocks and dodges. Gnomes offered copper, silver, and gold challenges. Entry cost 5 of the matching currency, and clearing one imposed a 3-day cooldown. Higher risk meant richer prizes. At the top, even dark gold equipment might appear. 5 coppers could therefore tempt a player into obsession. Stabbing Heart's run ended at 20 yards, only 10 short of the finish. The loss gnawed at him because it had also taught him the gnome's pattern. One more attempt, he believed, would be enough. The problem was painfully small. He lacked another 5 coppers. Stabbing Heart approached Shi Feng for the 5 coppers and leaned on his name. He was the Assassin's Alliance's famous assassin squad leader. Any veteran gamer knew the enormous guild. Usually, players would give him such a trivial sum just to earn an expert's favor. Shi Feng considered him, then named his terms with perfect calm. 5 coppers now, 50 repaid tomorrow. Stabbing Heart froze. He was accustomed to cries of expert and easy favors, not an unknown swordsman turning his reputation into a 10-fold debt. Shi Feng did not soften the offer. Still borrowing? Humiliated, Stabbing Heart weighed the 50 copper debt against the prize he believed he could win. Pride lost to opportunity. He agreed, wanting to weep at being treated like an ordinary customer. Bargain now became real. From the 60 coppers earned by selling the necklace, Shi Feng handed Stabbing Heart 5 and added him as a friend. Then he calmly repeated the painful condition. 50 coppers had to come back tomorrow. Tears ran down Stabbing Heart's face as he promised he would not forget. Shi Feng, unaware of the storm behind that answer, simply turned away. He already had a use for his remaining money. The green-skinned administrator greeted him with a lofty reminder that time was money. Shi Feng requested the copper prize challenge and paid 5 coppers. The gnome flipped the coins, approved them, and opened the wooden door. Gnome loudly welcomed a brave new swordsman. From the resting area, the Assassin's Alliance cleric recognized him as the man who had lent their boss money. Stabbing Heart looked over and laughed at the rookie's ambition. Stabbing Heart warned that the 30-yard course changed after 15. The gnomes fired faster there, and even he struggled beyond that point. His cleric eagerly supplied the verdict. If their boss had only reached 20 yards, this rookie might not survive 5. At the finish line, 3 gnomes raised their muskets and trained them on Shi Feng. The timer descended, 3, 2, 1. Then the field flashed its command, challenge start. Shi Feng flowed through the opening fire with no wasted motion. His speed and accuracy did not resemble a curious beginner. Every step was direct, every evasion efficient, the performance of someone tempered by countless runs, not a player seeing the course for the first time. Stabbing Heart could not deny the technique, yet pride refused the obvious conclusion. Perhaps Shi Feng was an athlete, he argued, or trained in martial arts. An unknown player could not be a greater expert. Besides, the attack beyond 15 yards would expose him. Shi Feng crossed 15 yards. The 3 gnomes erupted in anger and fired with wild abandon. Now 12 bullets spread across a broad area instead of simply targeting his position. The Assassin's Alliance members knew this pattern. Moving left or right was no longer enough. 3 shots became the immediate threat. Shi Feng shifted his head and body through the narrow gaps, but 1 bullet still drove straight for his chest. His novice sword flashed white. Steel met the round at precisely the right point, and a spark burst between them. Gnomes did not relent. Their muskets seemed like machine guns, sending another 5 bullets into a lane already sealed by surrounding fire. Shi Feng twisted through the possible gaps and struck aside the unavoidable rounds. Sparks rang from his sword as bullets split the air beside him. Only 3 seconds had passed since the pattern intensified. Shi Feng crossed the 20-yard mark, the farthest Stabbing Heart had ever reached, and kept moving. 10 yards remained between him and the finish. Male cleric's eyes widened. He demanded to know who this swordsman really was. Seeing trajectories was one thing, striking bullets accurately left a damnable margin for error. One mistake would end the run, yet Shi Feng made the impossible precision look natural. Stabbing Heart had no answer. Deflecting bullets was like walking a wire above an abyss, but Shi Feng seemed to enjoy it. Again and again, the shots appeared to avoid his body. The proud expert watched in silence as Shi Feng drove toward the final 10 yards. Shi Feng was still dancing through the gunfire when he crossed 25 yards. Sparks flashed around his gray armor as his damaged novice sword met shot after shot. The male cleric blurted that the swordsman would surely finish now. Stabbing Heart snapped that he had eyes, yet he could not look away. And a finish line gnome laughed and drew an automatic musket. The final pattern exploded into 24 bullets from only 5 yards away. Stabbing Heart shouted that it was cheating, and the watching players cursed with him. Shi Feng had expected this second change, but even his face turned grave before that wall of lead. He chose the least crowded patch in an instant. Shi Feng bent low and launched headfirst like a leopard, narrowing the target his body presented. His sword became 4 white streaks. 4 shots struck steel in a burst of sparks, and his body tore clean through the storm where no standing player could have survived. Before his body could crash down, Shi Feng planted his free hand, forced himself upright, and accelerated across the line like lightning. The result appeared immediately, 14 seconds. The copper record had been estimated at 18. He had not merely survived the gnome's final trick. He had shattered the benchmark by 4 full seconds. Shi Feng's first response was not celebration. Catching his breath beyond the line, he complained that this body still felt soft and weak. The feat had demanded far more than it would have from the stronger body he remembered. He collected the copper prize and left, already treating the victory as capital for his next move. Male cleric finally asked whether they should chase him and recover the prize. Stabbing Heart stared at him as if he had proposed suicide. An expert who could cross that last volley should be courted, not antagonized. Remembering the name Yi Feng on his friend list, Stabbing Heart hurried to report this unknown swordsman to his guild leader. Yi Feng was already converting victory into speed. At the trade area, he found Potion Master Kevin and paid 120 coppers for 20 exploding berries. The purchase reduced his wealth to just 30 coppers. He accepted the risk without hesitation. Those berries were not an indulgence. They were the engine of his plan to level like a rocket. Left Red Leaf Town and ran west. Around the walls, level 0 players fought over level 0 monsters, while better organized parties carefully handled level 1 baby wolves with a warrior, damage dealer, and healer. Shi Feng passed them all. He crossed the level 1 and level 3 regions and continued toward a place with no competition at all. Red Leaf Forest was a level 5 zone, and at this stage no player dared challenge it. Shi Feng entered anyway, but knowledge did not make his level 1 body invincible. Forest wolves were targets to avoid, not fight. He watched their patrols, stayed behind cover, and accepted long detours rather than expose himself too early. Next danger looked almost harmless. Little bear cubs fumbled and tumbled through the grass with an innocent charm, but they were level 5 monsters with enough health and defense to exhaust a melee fighter. Shi Feng did not let their appearance tempt him. He kept a tree between them and quietly rooted around the clearing. And a wolf howled behind him. Shi Feng stopped beside the tree, and even his practiced calm cracked. A wolf den. The nests were concealed well enough that players could enter their alert range before realizing anything was wrong. In Red Leaf Forest, one hidden mistake could transform careful travel into a party-wipe trap. Shi Feng knew exactly what that meant. Later, parties would enter this forest for skill books, equipment, leatherworking materials, herbs, and ore. They would arrive around level 4 or 5 and still risk losing everyone to hazards like this. He had come alone at level 1. Now the resource-rich forest had sprung one of its deadliest traps behind him. The unseen howl became 7 forest wolves bursting from the concealed den. Shi Feng had drawn almost the largest pack possible. These traps released anywhere from 3 to 8 wolves, enough to erase an unsuspecting party. He was alone, and to the pack, there was hardly enough meat on him to share. Shi Feng ran, but the gap closed. Every available attribute point had gone into agility, giving him 6 movement speed, yet he was still only a level 1 swordsman. Even a pure agility build at that level remained a fraction slower than forest wolves. With the wolves almost on him, Shi Feng stopped conserving his trump card. He activated Gravity Liberation. The weight pressing on his body vanished. He felt as light as a feather, and his speed leapt so sharply that the charging pack began to fall behind. Forest wolves were still common monsters, bound to a limited pursuit area. Once Shi Feng crossed that invisible boundary, they abandoned the chase. His ring had saved his life, but he did not stop. He kept running deeper into Red Leaf Forest for more than 10 minutes. At last, mountains and rolling hills rose ahead. Several peaks exceeded 100 meters, their summits wrapped in cloud and mist like an immortal realm. Shi Feng studied the towering slopes, found the waterfall he remembered, and exhaled, finally arrived. In Shi Feng's previous life, players had explored this famous region only after most were above level 20. Shadow Workshop sent a small assassin party into the central forest. Their expedition uncovered this treasure mountain and the valuable design hidden along its route. Shi Feng could not leave that advantage to Shadow again. His entire plan to earn 16,000 credits within 10 days depended on securing the design first. The mountain was dangerous, but turning back would surrender both the treasure and the real-world future he meant to change. There was no trail to the summit. Low-level players normally needed 40 agility to awaken the hidden basic ability Flying Steps. Without it, the bare rock could not be climbed. Shi Feng had only 12 agility. What he possessed instead was the Ring of Gravity. Gravity Liberation liked him again, and Shi Feng scaled the rock with ease. Within moments, he was 5 meters above the forest floor. When the skill had only 5 seconds remaining, he pulled onto a small, empty ledge and sat down to wait through the cooldown. Rest lasted only moments. The wall shuddered, stone roared, and a rock giant emerged beside the ledge. Its status was brutal, level 5, common rank, 550 HP. Shi Feng, still level 1 and waiting on his mobility cooldown, merely looked up. That was quick. Shi Feng was ready. He threw one explosive berry at the giant's feet, and sticky orange juice burst across a 3x3-yard patch. For 1 minute, anything caught in it lost 30% movement speed and 70% turn rate. Against this enemy, that control mattered more than damage. Giant's attack, defense, and HP were overwhelming, but its reactions were poor and its body turned even more slowly. An assassin with 20 agility could toy with it untouched. Shi Feng lacked that much agility, yet the berry supplied the missing advantage. He circled beyond its reach and began cutting. Thundering Flash carved 3 sword lights across the rock giant, 4 damage, then 5, then 7. The full hit granted 3 skill proficiency points and left a 15-second damage amplification window. Shi Feng followed with more slashes, each small number adding faster than the giant could answer. God's Domain did not award proficiency merely for repeating a skill. Against an equal-level monster, a use had only a 20% chance to gain 1 point. Each level of danger raised it: 40%, 70%, 100%, then 150%. At 5 levels above the player, the multiplier reached its 200% cap. Rock Giant never landed a hit. For all its HP and attack, the slowed monster was now a practice dummy handing Shi Feng EXP and skill proficiency. Thundering Flash had shortened the fight enough to preserve a second berry. Before 1 full minute passed, the giant crashed down. Fallen Rock Giant finally paid out. Because it stood 4 levels above Shi Feng, the system multiplied his experience by 400% and awarded 120 EXP. His bar surged forward, leaving exactly 880 EXP between him and level 2, 8 more giants at the same reward. Corpse held more than experience. Shi Feng recovered bronze ore, useful for making bronze equipment, and a piece of hard stone. Searching the ledge uncovered something rarer, 100 Souls flower, one of the core ingredients for a basic regeneration potion. Before Shi Feng could reach the flower, another rock giant spawned. He did not hesitate. An exploding berry burst across its path, then thundering flash and chop tore into the slowed target. Soon another giant fell, yielding another 120 EXP, hard stone, and a heavy gain in skill proficiency. Whenever gravity liberation finished cooling down, Shi Feng climbed to the next stretch. Between ascents, he searched for rare herbs and hunted more rock giants. Each dangerous kill advanced both his experience and his skills, turning the hidden mountain into the perfect early-game training ground. The 8th required giant fell, and Shi Feng reached level 2. He committed every new attribute point to agility, raising it to 16, only 4 short of fast and nimble. Chop reached 300 proficiency in level 2, gaining 12 damage and losing 1 second from its cooldown. Ordinary players needed hours merely to reach level 1, then another 7 or 8 hours for level 2. Shi Feng had made that second climb in less than 20 minutes. His leveling speed was absurd, but the next resting place offered something far more dangerous than another common giant. Shi Feng's opening damage barely registered, but it woke shrews from its deep sleep. The named Special Elite rose to its full, enormous height, shaking the cave. Enraged at the interruption, it bellowed that it would flatten the puny human and advanced with giant strides. Shi Feng gave shrews no chance to build momentum. He threw an exploding berry directly into its path. The Special Elite was larger, stronger, and quicker than an ordinary rock giant, but slowing fluid still reduced its weakness to a crawl. 16 agility carried Shi Feng straight around its back. Shi Feng attacked furiously, yet each ordinary cut dealt only 2 damage. Even after Thundering Flash amplified the target, level 2 chop produced just 6. Shrews' defense was frightening. Worse, after 5 seconds it recovered 18 HP, instantly erasing roughly half of Shi Feng's work. Shrews finally turned and raised a mountain-sized foot to crush him. Shi Feng had survived countless battles before reincarnation. Panic never entered his mind. One nimble step carried him around the sluggish stomp and back behind the giant, where his relentless cuts resumed. And the entire cave shook. Sharp stalactites broke loose in waves, raining across the chamber. It was a party-wipe skill. In this cramped space, a group would have nowhere to scatter. Shi Feng abandoned Shrews' side and threaded through the barrage, surviving only through his nimble body and the room he could find. When the barrage ended, Shrews looked exhausted. Shi Feng's eyes lit up. The attack had forced the boss into fatigue, a temporary weakness that greatly reduced both attack and defense. What looked like Shrews' deadliest weapon had also created the first real chance to kill it. Shi Feng struck with Thundering Flash and Chop. Damage numbers jumped to 4, 5, 6, and 10. His following cuts dealt 4 apiece under fatigue and damage amplification. Shrews' recovery also fell to 1%. By the time it returned to normal, Shi Feng had carved away 15% of its HP and found his path to victory. With Shrews' fatigue weakness exposed, the duel became a battle of persistence. Shi Feng kept circling in the same gray novice leather armor, cutting often enough to offset the giant's regeneration and unleashing Thundering Flash every 30 seconds. Whenever Shrews prepared its cave-wide attack, Shi Feng treated the nightmare skill as an invitation. He survived the barrage, rushed the weakened giant, and repeated the cycle. By the 5th explosive berry, Shrews had fallen to 32% HP. Shrews unleashed its great attack once more. Shi Feng endured, closed the distance during fatigue, and carved away another 16%. When the giant recovered, only 16% of its HP remained. The familiar plan had brought victory within reach. At 15%, Shrews changed. Its enormous body began shrinking. Attack and defense declined, but its movement speed and attack speed kept climbing. That trade favored the boss. Even through the berry slow, one sudden strike nearly caught Shi Feng. Single hit could still erase Shi Feng's level and much of his skill proficiency. But abandoning a special elite at 15% was unthinkable. He activated gravity liberation, regained room to dodge, and hacked for 3 damage at a time. 14% became 10, then 8, then 5. With 7 seconds of gravity liberation left, Shrews still had 5% HP. Shi Feng's eyes reddened with strain. He drove his sword faster, won the final damage race, and the special elite fell. Among Shrews' rewards was a high-quality bronze shield. Its defense was strong, and its 110 extra HP equaled roughly a third of a level 5 warrior's health. It could support level 5 dungeon dives, and even attempts as high as level 8. Skill book was rarer still. Parry could be learned by any melee job, required a melee weapon, and blocked 1 frontal attack every 30 seconds. Warriors prized it because 1 timely block could keep a tank alive until the healers recovered. Selling parry together with the shield would raise the price, but Shi Feng rejected that short-term gain. Trading away a rare survival tool was like killing the chicken for the egg. He learned the skill immediately, then resumed his climb. The shield was useful, but the secret silver treasure chest remained the real fortune. Shi Feng had only 4 explosive berries left and was not even 1/3 of the way up. Because monsters could appear at the resting points, he chose every path carefully. Half an hour later, careful progress brought Shi Feng to the summit. White clouds and mist swallowed the mountain's upper reaches, reducing sight to 20 yards. The anticipated treasure was no longer a simple destination. The obscured peak opened into the unknown lost lands. Shi Feng remembered 6 assassins above level 20 who had reached this place in his previous life. They told others only about finding a secret silver treasure chest. Later, exceptional members from their workshop rose abruptly in status, including Shi Feng himself in a different era. Was their true discovery a hidden quest? Shi Feng opened the system panel. 1 entry waited there, hidden quest of the lost lands past glory, that was all. No objective, no directions, and no clue about what completion required. And years of experience supplied the answer. Past glory was region activated. Players had to find every clue inside the area themselves. Once completed, it could never be triggered again. Such unique quests were precious, but their unknown regions usually held monsters several levels stronger than the surroundings. 6 level 20 assassins had possessed the strength to search a region tied to level 5 monsters. Shi Feng was only level 2, but there was no normal way out. He chose to explore. At worst, death would send him back to town. Deeper in the lost lands, Shi Feng entered a city abandoned for ages. Ruined houses stretched in every direction, remnants of a metropolis large enough for millions and once grander than White River City. Yet among all that vanished prosperity, not one human shadow moved. He searched tens of streets and hundreds of houses. Hours vanished without a clue. This was the opening of God's domain, the best chance to build an early lead. Other players had already reached level 1, while Shi Feng remained only 34% through level 2. Shi Feng considered the practical escape, kill himself here and revive in town, accepting the loss of levels and skill proficiency. Instead, he imposed a hard limit, 1 more hour. If the city still yielded nothing, he would abandon past glory and return to other quests. Last search carried him to the central tower, once sacred ground where mages learned their craft. Now it was beyond repair, and even the magic crystal at its peak lay shattered. Shi Feng climbed to the observatory and scanned the entire city, still finding nothing unusual. At the instant Shi Feng turned to leave, an elderly NPC addressed the young adventurer. The long search had finally reached past glory's hidden trail. The elder offered him a test. Shi Feng accepted at once, relieved that he would not have to die back to town and lose levels and proficiency. The elder gave him 3 choices. Normal promised a mysterious iron treasure chest. Hard offered a secret silver chest and extra rewards based on completion. Hell raised the prize to a fine gold chest, again with completion-based bonuses. Every step was more dangerous and far more tempting. Shi Feng remembered the 6 assassins above level 20. They had selected hard, revealed the secret silver chest, and hidden their additional reward, proof that the real prize was better still. Trusting his reincarnated experience, he chose hell. The elder laughed with admiration, warned him not to regret it, and vanished. System revealed what hell meant. Face 1,000 monsters at his own level, kill 500 to pass, and finish within 4 hours. Failure would permanently strip 10 points from every attribute. For any job that was crippling, Shi Feng could only call the penalty ruthless. The Spectre Warriors were not the over-leveled, high-defense enemies that had blunted Shi Feng's skills before. Against targets at his own level, Thundering Flash finally showed its true AoE strength. Its amplification let him finish the first warrior with only 5 sword strikes. Shi Feng activated Gravity Liberation, raising his attack speed until each amplified warrior took only 3 seconds to kill. The enemies gave no experience, but every death guaranteed 1 skill proficiency point. For a swordsman who feared crowd tactics least, the supposed punishment had become a training ground. The upgraded Thundering Flash accelerated the slaughter again. Soon only a little over 20 Spectre Warriors remained, with an hour and a half still on the clock. Shi Feng unleashed the skill once more. The final 20 fell together, completing a trial most players would have failed with perfection. With the final Spectre warriors gone, the Elder reappeared, chuckling at Shi Feng's perfect performance. Past glory was complete. He presented a gold-plated fine gold treasure chest and a pitch-black, job-related magic weapon, rewards worthy of clearing hell difficulty without compromise. System added one more prize, might of 1,000. While equipped, the title raised every ally's attributes by 10% within 30 yards. Shi Feng himself would gain 5 strength and 5 endurance, a personal boost and a powerful advantage for any party he led. The Elder waved him away. Shi Feng's vision blurred and the ruined trial vanished. He opened his eyes in Red Leaf Town's crowded central plaza, just as his communication alert began chiming without pause. Blackie had been trying desperately to reach him. Blackie's relief instantly became panic. 7 hours of travel had finally brought him to Red Leaf Town, but he was still level 0. The streets were already full of level 1 players, and parties demanded level 1 at minimum. To everyone else, he was dead weight. Shi Feng apologized for being unreachable and told Blackie to come to the central plaza. He would take him leveling personally. More than 8 hours into God's domain, professionals were nearing level 2, but with 10 years of future knowledge, Shi Feng knew he could make Blackie catch up quickly. Before meeting Blackie, Shi Feng found a quiet alley and examined the pitch-black longsword. The system asked whether he wished to bind it. The abyssal blade was a magic weapon, unranked, more elusive than legendary equipment, and powerful enough to transform an expert's future. Magic weapons were double-edged. Their backlash had elevated several Star Moon experts, then crippled 2 of their accounts so completely they had to start over. Shi Feng needed 16,000 credits in 10 days. 1 failure would ruin everything. He rejected the binding prompt and stored the blade. Shi Feng brought out the fine gold chest. In 10 years, he had seen fewer than 20. Wars had been fought over each one. Even a lesser secret silver chest could yield valuable recipes and designs. He slowly raised the lid, and golden light flooded the alley. First reward was Sky Armor, level 5 plate with top-tier attributes. Its power weakening effect reduced incoming physical damage by 15%, enough to make physical bosses far easier to tank. Since swordsmen could wear plate, Shi Feng stored it for level 5, delighted by his future defense. 2 ancient books remained, the Book of Forging and Records of Potions. Both were treasures capable of cultivating production masters. Their value was enormous. Even Shadow, after controlling 10 city-states, had possessed only 2 forging masters and 5 potion masters, and treated everyone like royalty. And Shi Feng remembered Hammer Trading's path to becoming a forging master. A hidden quest in Dark Moon Valley taught forging free and granted forging talent. Combined with the Book of Forging, it could quickly make Shi Feng an advanced forging apprentice, able to sell bronze equipment. The problem was preparation. The valley was level 4, and the quest was difficult and time-consuming. Dark Moon Valley demanded real preparation. Shi Feng stored the Book of Forging and Records of Potions, then mailed Blackie, meet him in Red Leaf Town's trade area. With the message sent, he left the alley and headed there himself. The trade area was already crowded. Players exhausted from monster hunting drank and traded stories, while others spread out herbs, ore, and fresh loot. It was part marketplace, part resting ground, and exactly where Shi Feng could turn rare drops into expedition money. Shi Feng claimed an empty spot, spread a white cloth, and arranged his herbs and equipment. The level 4 common cloth armor went up for 1 silver and 20 coppers. The blue, cross-shaped level 5 bronze shield was 21 silvers, a fair price, despite sounding impossible this early. Shi Feng called out rare herbs and high-level equipment. The entire market turned. Nobody else was selling equipment at all, yet here was common gear and even a bronze shield. Players stared, questioned their eyes, and wondered what kind of luck could produce level 5 equipment before 10 hours had passed. Chatter turned to Red Leaf Town's latest scandal. An unknown expert had killed the level 15 elite town mayor. Now new quests from him were gone, and players already holding his quests were furious. Without realizing it, the crowd was discussing the very stall owner standing before them. Flaming Tiger pushed forward, excited by the shield. Shi Feng wore only novice equipment and no guild insignia, and Flaming Tiger lacked observing eyes. He concluded that this was an average player blessed by luck. Then he offered 1 silver, not for the shield, but for everything on the cloth. Shi Feng did not rise to the insult. He simply said his prices were fixed and told Flaming Tiger to stop hindering business by acting like a lord. The dismissal turned Flaming Tiger livid. He invoked Shadow's name and demanded that Shi Feng reconsider before answering again. 5 more Shadow members surrounded the stall. Shi Feng looked around once and called them fools. Red Leaf Town prohibited player violence. Their encirclement had no teeth. Flaming Tiger's eyes reddened with rage, desperate to kill him but unable to act without the town's rules answering first. Laughter cut through the standoff. Stabbing Heart arrived with more than 10 insignia-wearing members of the Assassin's Alliance. He recognized Shi Feng immediately. This was the expert who cleared the bronze prize challenge in 1 try. That recognition shattered Shadow's false appraisal. Once the market business concluded, Shi Feng held 24 silvers. 24 silvers was more than an average guild's total wealth, and Shi Feng spent it like a tycoon with a precise list. First came 20 bottles of black steel beer at 25 coppers each, then 30 smoke bombs at 20 coppers apiece, tools chosen for what lay beyond town. Next, Shi Feng bought 100 apple pies for 5 coppers each. Every pie restored 30 health per second for 10 seconds. He matched them with 100 magic water at the same price, each drink restoring 30 mana per second for 10 seconds. Health and skill use were both covered. Buying spree consumed almost everything. Shi Feng's 24 silvers fell to 3, yet his inventory now held beer, smoke bombs, and 200 recovery consumables. He had not wasted his fortune. He had converted it into the exact margin for a difficult level 4 route. Blackie had been waiting for some time, and his face was dark with resentment. God's domain had been open for more than 9 hours. He was still level 0, and aside from earning the Explorer title, he had gained nothing. Watching Shi Feng finally approach, he demanded to know what came next. Shi Feng answered with a smile. They were going to grind monsters. A party request appeared before Blackie. The frustrated level 0 Cursomancer finally had a route forward, and Shi Feng, carrying only 3 silvers but a carefully built stockpile, was ready to lead him out of town. Already formed, Shi Feng led Blackie out of Red Leaf Town and onto the road toward Dark Moon Valley. Shi Feng moved with the confidence of someone following a tested plan. Blackie, still level 0 after 9 fruitless hours, soon realized exactly where that plan was taking them. Blackie nervously asked for a safer destination. Dark Moon Valley was a level 4 monster area. Players normally fought only 1 level above themselves. Even a 2-level challenge called for 6 people. Yet Shi Feng was level 2, Blackie was level 0, and there were only 2 of them. Shi Feng merely smiled. He pointed to his level 2 status and claimed that a friendly expert beta tester had shared a secret route. Blackie could simply board the leveling rocket. It was the perfect alibi. Every advantage from Shi Feng's second life could now be blamed on one imaginary friend. Blackie's anxiety vanished. Of course, Brother Feng had a hidden expert behind him. No wonder he had refused to earn money through Shadow Workshop. Laughing, Blackie declared that Shi Feng's guidance would decide the happiness of his lower half. Crude as the joke was, his trust had become wholehearted. Passing player drew Shi Feng's attention, Gentle Snow. To the present world, her legend had not yet been written. Shi Feng remembered what came 3 years later. She would become one of the country's 10 greatest berserkers, the battle goddess, and a top-tier expert known far beyond ordinary players. Gentle Snow's fame would reach commercials and a personal fortune above tens of billions of credits. As vice-guild leader of Ouroboros, one command from her could move millions of players. Shi Feng had once been too minor even to approach her shadow. Then, without explanation, she vanished from God's domain. Blackie suddenly pointed into the golden paddy fields. A snow-white fox stood in the distance with a little rabbit in its mouth. Its interface confirmed an extraordinary find. Cunning Snow Fox, level 2, rare elite, 450 HP. Blackie's sharp eyes and sheer luck had found them a fortune. Rare elites fought like ordinary elites, but dropped far better rewards and took a long time to respawn. Encounters depended on luck. Shi Feng refused to waste this one. He told Blackie to attack from range, then slipped toward the fox while Blackie warned that fighting it without a full party or healer meant death. Blackie's warning came too late. Shi Feng circled behind the snow fox and opened with chop. The elite answered with frightening speed. Shi Feng caught its attack on his novice sword, but even the block stripped away nearly 50 HP. A clean bite could have dealt more than 100. Sweat broke across Blackie's forehead. If Shi Feng died, he would fall back to level 1 and lose his hard-won lead. Shi Feng shouted for Blackie to move. Convinced they were both doomed, Blackie clenched his teeth. He was still level 0 anyway. At worst, he would die once beside his friend. Dark Arrow struck the Snow Fox for only 5 damage. Blackie had invested everything in intelligence, yet the elite's defense reduced his best effort to a scratch. Shi Feng carried the real burden. The fox's agility let it evade chop, forcing him to rely on ordinary slashes worth only 18 damage apiece. 10 seconds of attrition settled the matter. Shi Feng had only 31 HP left. The cunning Snow Fox still had 244. Every successful bite threatened more than 100 damage. With too few skills to duel an agility-type elite directly, Shi Feng reached one cold conclusion. If he dragged this out, he died. He needed a burst. At 31 HP against the Snow Fox's 244, Shi Feng began the burst he had calculated. He pulled out a bottle of black steel beer and took 2 mouthfuls. Alcohol blurred his vision almost immediately. Then he activated gravity liberation, and his speed leaped. Through the haze, the level 2 Snow Fox now displayed as level 0. The level difference suppression vanished, freeing Shi Feng's damage. The advantage had a price. His own body felt difficult to control. Only his years of battle experience made the gamble usable. Die! Shi Feng tightened his grip and unleashed Thundering Flash. 3 lightning-fast cuts tore across the fox's waist for 30, 36, and 42 damage. A following chop landed for another 43. The monster that had dominated him was suddenly trapped beneath relentless speed. Blackie's eyes nearly popped out. Moments ago, the rare elite had been mauling them. Now it looked like Shi Feng's plaything. He demanded to know what Brother Feng had drunk. By the time the snow fox fell to 42 HP, Shi Feng was ready to finish it. A murderous chill ran down Shi Feng's neck like a dagger already touching it. Instinct overruled the finishing blow. He sprang forward, and a bright snowy blade cut through the exact space he had occupied. Behind him, the hidden attacker emerged with an astonished expression, Quiet Wolf. The interruption gave the snow fox its final chance. It bellowed, its snow-white skin blazing red as its body swelled and its HP rose by 20%. Then it activated Tearing Bite, 50% greater damage, followed by 30 bleeding damage for 5 seconds. Quiet Wolf charged, promising Shi Feng regret while claiming he would take care of the fox in his place. The system marked him Yellow Name for 1 hour. Anyone could now attack him without penalty. At only 31 HP, Shi Feng faced the empowered fox and a player assassin together. Despicable, Blackie shouted from the distance, but anger could not close the gap. Dark Arrow revealed a prediction line the moment it launched, making a moving expert easy to miss. Unable to reliably strike Quiet Wolf, Blackie aimed at the fox and tried to deny him the prize. The corner of Shi Feng's mouth lifted. He had spent years around Quiet Wolf in shadow and knew both his strengths and his habits. Shi Feng stepped backward twice, placing himself, the fox, and the charging assassin into a perfect triangle. Then he waited for both attackers to commit. At the last possible instant, Shi Feng slipped out of the convergence. Quiet Wolf had rushed too far to reconsider, and the snow fox's lethal final attack became Shi Feng's counterweapon. The assassin stared at Shi Feng's mocking smile in disbelief. He had never imagined a player could exploit a monster this way. Quiet Wolf's HP reached 0. Still glaring with unwillingness, he fell and dissolved into starlight, leaving one piece of equipment behind. Blackie was so dumbfounded that he stopped attacking. Shi Feng immediately shouted him awake and rushed the wounded snow fox again. Blackie recovered, chanted furiously, and poured dark arrows into the target while Shi Feng attacked from close range. Without Quiet Wolf's interference, the near-death fox lasted less than 10 seconds. It released one final wail and fell. The system awarded 130 EXP for killing the cunning snow fox. Level 2 Shi Feng, 130 EXP was minor. The loot was the real reward. Rare elites were coveted for their exceptional drop rates, and this was the snow fox's first kill. His expectation paid off. Among the drops were an arm guard and, astonishingly, a weapon. Weapon was the level 1 bronze Blackwood staff. It required 5 strength and granted 8 attack power, 3 intelligence, 1 vitality, 30 mana, and full 20-point durability. For a mage, those bonuses could raise damage by roughly 2 levels. This was no ordinary early-game drop. Snow Fox's unidentified arm guard proved to be fox skin gloves, level 1 common leather armor requiring 3 strength. They granted 4 defense and had full 20-point durability. It was not another spectacular bronze drop, but at this stage, even common equipment was valuable protection. Quiet Wolf's loss was useful too. The equipment he dropped was a pair of level 0 common leathered shoes worth another 3 defense. Obtaining common gear this early required real luck. Ironically, that luck now benefited Shi Feng, and the 2 new pieces raised his defense by a substantial amount. Shi Feng held out the Blackwood staff. Blackie hesitated. Shi Feng had carried the Snow Fox battle, yet Blackie was being offered the most valuable reward, a bronze weapon few players could hope to own. Shi Feng cut through the guilt. They were brothers, and once Blackie reached level 1, the staff would help them both level faster. Back in Red Leaf Town, Flaming Tiger berated Quiet Wolf for dying and dropping expensive equipment. Quiet Wolf's report changed the mood with 2 words, rare elite. Flaming Tiger's fury sharpened into greed. If Shi Feng had taken such a monster's first kill, then recovering 1 lost item was no longer the only prize at stake. Flaming Tiger gathered every Shadow Workshop member available in Red Leaf Town. With 11 members behind him, he rushed toward Dark Moon Valley, promising to make Shi Feng regret playing God's domain. His objective was simple, kill Shi Feng and take his equipment. By then, however, Shi Feng and Blackie had already reached the valley. Beside a flowing creek stood a secluded smithy. A bare-chested, middle-aged blacksmith worked crimson-red ore with a steel hammer, answering neither visitor. Ding, dang, Shi Feng and Blackie simply stood and watched. Half an hour passed before Blackie finally asked whether they truly had to keep waiting. Shi Feng's answer was firm. Without patience, the blacksmith would never offer the quest. In his previous life, a player named Hammer Trading had found this smithy by accident. Repeated attempts to speak were ignored, so he stubbornly remained and glared, until the blacksmith finally addressed him and revealed a hidden quest. A chance had turned Hammer Trading into the era's forging master by granting him forging talent. Shi Feng wanted the same foundation. Combined with his book of forging, the talent could make advancement to advanced forging apprentice easy. Then crafting would stop being preparation and become income, enough that, in Shi Feng's imagination, gold coins practically rained into his pockets. Waiting finally paid off. Jack's hidden quest set a concrete test: collect 100 pieces of meteorite ore that ore lay beyond the valley's kobold-held mine. With the forging route now active rather than merely remembered, Shi Feng led Blackie away from the quiet smithy and toward the dangerous entrance. More than 10 level 4 kobolds guarded the entrance. Shi Feng did not charge them. First, he had Blackie eat an apple pie. 10 seconds later, every one of Blackie's attributes rose by 1 for 30 minutes. Then came Black Steel Beer. Blackie's vision blurred, and the level 4 enemies appeared to drop 2 levels. Drunken effect lasted only 30 minutes, so Shi Feng moved immediately. He approached the mine and threw a smoke bomb into the kobold group. The cloud would last an hour and reduce their sight by 10 yards, leaving a 25-yard vision range. Blackie, attacking from 30 yards, should remain completely unseen. Shi Feng pointed into the smoke. "Attack!" Blackie still doubted the plan, but he trusted Shi Feng. He chanted his curse and a dark arrow streaked into the cloud. It struck the foremost kobold. 21 damage rose above the monster's head, and now they would learn whether the blinded pack could find its attacker. Wounded kobold erupted in fury. Its blood-red eyes swept the smoke like searchlights, and the rest of the pack snapped to attention. Hidden in the forest 30 yards away, Blackie could hear his own heartbeat racing. If the monsters found them, their true level 4 attributes would crush both players. Black Steel Beer only made enemies appear 2 levels weaker. It did nothing to their actual attributes. Yet the furious kobold found no target. It whined, settled down, and the others lost interest. Shi Feng clapped Blackie's shoulder. "Relax, stay 30 yards away and they won't attack." Shi Feng had bought every item for this exact geometry. Reassured, Blackie resumed chanting. Dark arrow after dark arrow crossed the gap until, after more than 20 hits, the 420 HP kobold finally collapsed. None of its companions reacted. Then Blackie's experience jumped 5% from a single shared kill. Shi Feng collected the drops and went back for more, but this time he wanted a crowd. With 16 agility, he was faster than the kobolds. He gathered over 30, holding them at 20 to 25 yards as the entire pack thundered after him toward the smoke. Once every kobold entered the cloud, Shi Feng suddenly accelerated beyond 25 yards. Their target vanished. The whole mob stopped in a daze. Blackie, still more than 30 yards away, seized the opening and poured dark arrows into the motionless group. In under 10 minutes, more than 30 kobolds were gone. The wave left 21 coppers and 6 pieces of meteorite ore, while both players' experience climbed sharply. Shi Feng's method was no longer an experiment. It was a production line for levels, money, and the ore demanded by Jack's hidden quest. Cycle repeated, Shi Feng lured, Blackie fired, and the loot steadily accumulated. What should have felt mechanical only made Blackie more vigorous. After 1 hour, he reached level 2. Dark Arrow rose to level 3, and its damage leaped from over 40 to over 60. Stronger Dark Arrow consumed more MP, but Shi Feng had planned for that too. Magic Water restored Blackie completely before each fresh group arrived. While Blackie handled the damage, Shi Feng watched his condition, adjusted every lure, and gathered the growing piles of copper coins and meteorite ore. Call broke the rhythm. The caller was Lonely Snow, the warrior who had once bought Shi Feng's leveling information. Shi Feng had nearly forgotten the deal. At the time, he had needed money quickly and offered a few casual pointers. Lonely Snow's remaining 10 coppers had now arrived. Payment was only an introduction. Deathly Forest, Red Leaf Town's first level 2 dungeon, had opened, and Lonely Snow wanted Shi Feng to join his run. He stressed that every friend in the party was a level 2 veteran. To sweeten the offer, every piece of swordsman equipment would belong to Shi Feng. Only Snow sounded nervous despite the generous offer. Experts often refused to carry strangers, especially people they considered rookies. That was why he kept emphasizing the party's level 2 veterans. Shi Feng's silence left him waiting, while Shi Feng searched 10 years of memory for what Deathly Forest truly represented. Deathly Forest opened once enough players in Red Leaf Town reached level 2. Its label was deceptive. In Shi Feng's previous life, this first dungeon introduced everyone to God's domain's real difficulty. It was not conquered until many players had already reached level 4 or even level 5. Danger came with rare opportunity. Deathly Forest monsters mainly dropped basic skill books for every job, expanding what players could do. But Shi Feng remembered the real prize, a forging design with an extremely low drop rate, obtainable only from the final boss, Werewolf Felot. Deathly Forest was far deadlier than its level 2 label suggested, but Shi Feng had already found the reason to risk it. Werewolf Felot's rare forging design could push his larger plans forward. With Lonely Snow still waiting on the call, Shi Feng gave him an answer, but not a cheap one. Shi Feng would bring Blackie, but every Cursomancer and Swordsman item would belong to them. He also claimed all materials and design papers dropped by the boss. It was most of the valuable loot, and he asked for it as casually as though the division were obvious. Only Snow reluctantly accepted. Believing he had secured a genuine beta tester, he asked when Shi Feng could come. Shi Feng estimated Blackie's killing speed and set the meeting at Deathly Forest's entrance in about 2 hours, enough time to finish collecting all 100 meteorite ores. 3 Level 2 companions stood beside Lonely Snow. The handsome ranger asked for the answer. Once Lonely Snow repeated every term, the shield warrior exploded, calling the so-called expert a profiteer. The male cleric was equally sour. Shi Feng's friend would take every mage class drop. Lonely Snow nevertheless stood by the agreement. Back at the mine, Shi Feng reached level 3. Strength surged through him. His body felt dramatically lighter and more agile, and all 5 senses sharpened at once. For the first time, his game body could express more of the veteran control his mind already possessed. Last kobold Blackie killed had dropped something even more shocking: level 1 bronze warboots. Common monsters from levels 1 through 3 did not drop bronze equipment at all, and a level 4 wild monster's chance was only 1 in 10,000. Blackie's luck had broken the odds again. Recruits' warboots required 6 strength. They granted 8 defense, 1 strength, 1 endurance, 1 movement speed, and 20 durability. Blackie immediately celebrated the extra speed. More importantly, he looked relieved. Until now, he alone had received bronze equipment. Seeing Shi Feng gain some too eased the imbalance between them. Blackie asked how much meteorite ore remained. Shi Feng checked his bag, 96 pieces. Only 4 more were needed, so 1 additional kobold wave should finish the job. Another player might have spent 5 or 6 hours reaching that total. With Blackie's damage, they had done it after only a few hundred kills. Before Shi Feng could lure another wave, his newly sharpened senses caught 3 blurred figures closing behind Blackie. He shouted for Blackie to dodge and tore out his novice sword. The attackers were Quiet Wolf and 2 assassins, already converging from the blind side as Shi Feng rushed to intercept them. The ambush wounded Blackie, but he answered with Dark Arrow. Its impact nearly erased Quiet Wolf in a single hit. Quiet Wolf froze, eyes almost bulging from their sockets, and his accomplices shared the shock. Even Blackie stared at the result. A cursomancer was not supposed to hit like a cannon. Level 3 Dark Arrow was only one part of it. The Blackwood Staff's high damage, Shi Feng's might of 1,000 aura, and level suppression had stacked together. Quiet Wolf reached the wrong conclusion. Blackie's staff had to be Mysterious Iron. Greed replaced shock, and he ordered both assassins to take it. 3 assassins struck again. Blackie's health collapsed to just 6 HP. To men who did not even own common weapons, the supposed Mysterious Iron staff looked one blow away from becoming theirs. Blackie stood at the edge of death as Shi Feng closed the final distance, sword already in motion. 3 assassins lunged for Blackie's final 6 HP, and Shi Feng appeared between them. His novice sword moved 3 times in one breath. Steel met every incoming blade, 3 sparks burst across the darkness, and all 3 attackers were knocked backward. They never touched the ground. 3 streaks of thunder caught them in midair for 32, 41, and 50 damage. Low assassin defense and level suppression made the level 2 thundering flash merciless. All 3 HP bars emptied, and their bodies dissolved into starlight. Blackie could only stare at Shi Feng's back. The rescue had been one impossible instant. 3 attacks blocked, then 3 enemies erased before they could react. He knew this man, yet the speed looked inhuman. Dumbfounded, he asked, "Are you really Brother Feng?" Shi Feng did not share Blackie's daze. One sweep of the area revealed 8 more players closing around them with Flaming Tiger at the front. The rescue had spent enough of his advantage. He cut through Blackie's shock with one urgent order: move. Fast and nimble let Shi Feng's body answer his thoughts with frightening freedom, but it was not limitless. His low attributes made every explosive maneuver difficult to control and mentally exhausting. 2 or 3 bursts were manageable. A prolonged fight against 8 players was not. He chose escape. Flaming Tiger, this was more than a stolen hunting spot. God's domain had drawn billions of players, shuttered rival game companies, and attracted enterprises and financial groups hungry for profit. A foothold here could become real wealth, and Flaming Tiger imagined that future belonged to him. He pictured himself dominating Red Leaf Town, forcing the great guilds to acknowledge him and becoming Shadow's captain. Cars, mansions, and beautiful women followed in the fantasy. Shi Feng had handed him the opportunity, but gratitude would not stop him from coveting both men's bronze equipment. Subordinate raised the cost of the failed ambush. Quiet Wolf and the other 2 assassins had fallen all the way to level 0 and lost substantial skill proficiency. Flaming Tiger barely cared. The captured mine, he believed, could repair those losses quickly. Shadow had watched the trick work, attacked the level 4 kobolds from range while smoke blinded them and the monsters would not retaliate. Flaming Tiger ordered the 3 assassins back at once. When a subordinate praised him as Shadow's future number 1, he scoffed. He wanted all of God's domain. From nearby, Blackie watched Shadow profit from information Shi Feng had obtained through a beta tester. The theft made him furious. He called them shameless and admitted one consolation: he was glad he had never joined Shadow. But Shi Feng was not watching the mine with regret. Shi Feng glanced at the system panel's clock and smiled. Shadow had stolen his ground, but only temporarily. He told Blackie to let them enjoy it. In a little while, they would learn what came after happiness. His confidence did not come from bravado, it came from timing. Waiting did not mean idleness. In an undeveloped stretch of Dark Moon Valley near the mine, monsters were plentiful and no other players competed for them. Their new target was the roaming gnome, a level 4 common monster with 400 HP, exceptional agility, and relatively weak attack and defense. The agile gnomes dodged well, but their daggers could not touch level 3 Shi Feng once he activated fast and nimble. He tied them down from the front while level 2 Blackie attacked from behind, his damage sharpened by Black Steel Beer. Together, they killed faster than they had against the kobolds. While Shi Feng and Blackie hunted roaming gnomes nearby, Shadow reveled in its stolen ground. Fallen kobolds lay before the Crimson Star mine, surrounded by copper coins and scattered ore. In barely half an hour, the entire farming group had already reached level 2. Level 2 mages were killing much faster now, and even groups of 30 kobolds no longer satisfied Flaming Tiger. He ordered the 3 recently arrived assassins to lure more. At this pace, he boasted, everyone would reach level 3 in another 3 or 4 hours. And a berserker called out over a new drop, a book. Flaming Tiger snatched it up, licked his dry lips, and burst into laughter. It contained a rare swordsman's skill. Stealing Shi Feng's hard-won farming spot was satisfying. Using its best prize to mock him would be even better. White Wolf had seen Shi Feng and Blackie nearby, still killing roaming gnomes. After dying to Shi Feng twice, he wanted revenge now and urged Flaming Tiger to remove them. Flaming Tiger refused. Let them watch, he said, while Shadow gained levels, money, and dominion over Red Leaf Town. Nearby, Shi Feng pointed toward the smoke covering the mine entrance. Shadow had copied the result without understanding the tool. The smoke bomb lasted only 1 hour and just 2 minutes remained. They thought they could enjoy his domain after stealing it. Shi Feng smiled. It was time to teach them otherwise. Blackie finally understood. Their ability to attack higher-level kobolds without taking damage had never belonged to the terrain. It depended entirely on the smoke bomb. Without it, the consequences would be horrifying. His admiration surged, and he grinned that Shadow's brats were finished. 2 minutes later, the smoke began to disperse. An elementalist noticed first and called to Flaming Tiger. Jolted awake, Flaming Tiger stared at the vanishing cloud, then decided it must be periodic. He ordered everyone to ignore it and keep grinding. Kobolds that had seemed too stupid to retaliate all turned toward Shadow at once. More than 40 pairs of eyes burned blood red. At last, they could see the players who had been attacking them. Angry growls rolled across the minefront, and the entire pack charged. Shadow had no time to form a defense. The kobolds surrounded them in an instant and began beating them down. A level 2 player could barely survive 3 hits from one kobold. Against an entire mob, their borrowed advantage collapsed almost immediately. Flaming Tiger was more capable than the rest of Shadow, and he still believed he could kill Shi Feng himself. He raised his shield to block Shi Feng's vision, then drove his short sword toward a vital point from the blind side. The attack was simple, sinister, and difficult to stop. Flaming Tiger's confident thrust struck nothing. Shi Feng had vanished from directly ahead. As Flaming Tiger searched the empty space, a voice answered from behind him. Over here! Shi Feng's sword chopped down for 36 damage, dropping Flaming Tiger from 220 HP to 184. Flaming Tiger spun and fired off Shield Bash, but Shi Feng had already read the movement. He stepped back, turned around the shield itself, and arrived at Flaming Tiger's back again. Without using another skill, his next slash dealt only 23 damage against the shield warrior's heavy defense, but Flaming Tiger still could not touch him. Pattern continued until Flaming Tiger had only 83 HP left. Unable to land a single hit on the more agile Shi Feng, he abandoned technique for provocation. He called Shi Feng a coward for attacking from behind and boasted that he could kill him anytime, hoping anger would finally create an opening. With only 83 HP left, Flaming Tiger tried one last provocation. Shi Feng accepted without hesitation. He would stand there and not dodge. Flaming Tiger silently celebrated. Certain the supposed fool had taken the bait, he raised his shield and launched charge, trusting his strength to win the direct collision. Shi Feng waited until the charging shield warrior was only 2 yards away. Then, without dodging, he used Thundering Flash. 3 streaks of lightning swept past the shield and struck Flaming Tiger directly. The damage numbers rose in sequence, 28, 35, 41, and his remaining HP vanished. Flaming Tiger could only choke out one accusation, despicable. Shi Feng spread his arms as if the outcome were an innocent misunderstanding. He had promised not to dodge. He had never promised not to move his hands. Flaming Tiger had gullibly rushed over and delivered himself into every strike. Shi Feng added one final thank you. Brother Tycoon had gathered all that ore and saved him considerable time. Flaming Tiger pointed, desperate to answer, but his body had already become starlight. He disappeared without another word, leaving the ore and one precious unidentified skill book on the ground. In Red Leaf Town's noisy plaza, white revival flashes appeared one after another. Shadows defeated players materialized from them with downcast, deeply depressed expressions. Their failed occupation of the mine had ended in a collective setback, while everything they had gathered remained behind for Shi Feng. When Flaming Tiger checked his bag, the loss struck harder than death. The rare swordsman's skill book, the most valuable item Shadow had obtained from grinding kobolds, was gone. Realizing it had fallen into Shi Feng's hands, he tasted blood, spat it out, and furiously ordered everyone back to Dark Moon Valley. The other Shadow members did not share his certainty. Returning immediately would be futile. No sensible opponent would wait at the scene for revenge to arrive. Shi Feng would already be slipping away and laughing at them from somewhere else. Flaming Tiger's rage had produced an order with no workable target. Flaming Tiger answered the incoming system communication with another threat, demanding to know who dared disturb him. The reply was ice cold. His temper had certainly grown. Recognition erased his bluster. He hurriedly called the speaker Brother Zhang, claimed he had only been disciplining subordinates, and begged him not to take offense. Brother Zhang cut through the excuses. He already knew about the disaster and coldly confronted Flaming Tiger with the damage he had caused to Shadow's development in Red Leaf Town. The man who had just screamed at everyone around him could offer only anxious deference under his superior's fury. At the mine, Blackie laughed while gathering Shadow's abandoned ore. The meteorite ore they needed was all there, along with plenty of bronze ore. Then he noticed one dark green piece and asked what a star crystal was. Shi Feng abandoned the nearby ore and rushed straight to him. Shi Feng examined the dark green ore carefully and confirmed it was real. Any monster could drop a star crystal, but the chance was only 1 in a million. Other players might dismiss it as trash. To him, it was priceless and exactly what he needed most. Blackie's luck had produced an extraordinary treasure. When Blackie asked what could possibly eat a rock, Shi Feng answered only that it was for eating, not by players, and stored it away. Blackie trusted his reasons and stopped asking. Once every drop was collected, the tally stood at 14 meteorite ore and 32 bronze ore. The quest was complete with leftovers. From Crimson Star Mine, Shi Feng and Blackie went straight to the smithy. Shi Feng placed every piece of meteorite ore before Master Jack, keeping none. There was no reason to hold back. These were quest items, and even an entire stack would fetch only 1 copper from an NPC. Master Jack called the work satisfactory, but not sufficient. A truly outstanding forger, he explained, needed the strength to seize precious ore personally. To prove that strength, Shi Feng would have to kill the powerful kobold chieftain. System made the trap precise. Road of forging was not finished. Shi Feng had 1 hour to return to Crimson Star Mine and kill its kobold chieftain. Shi Feng wanted to curse hammer trading. In his previous life, the man had never mentioned a second stage, and he had accepted it at level 16. At level 3, Shi Feng now faced something stronger than a special elite, a chieftain equivalent to a dungeon boss. Being deceived changed nothing. Forging talent was too useful to surrender, so Shi Feng decided to inspect the situation first. He and Blackie fought their way deeper into Crimson Star Mine, where the ordinary kobolds had risen from level 4 to level 5. Shi Feng tested his safest idea first, and the numbers killed it. The chieftain could see across 55 yards. A smoke bomb removed only 10, leaving 45. Even a ranger's maximum 40-yard attack range would still fall 5 yards short. Blackie stared at the chieftain's enormous HP and the giant axe on its back. One hit looked capable of turning him into paste. When he asked whether they could truly win, Shi Feng gave the answer Blackie least expected. He did not know. There was no terrain to exploit. Victory meant fighting head-on. At level 5 in full bronze equipment, Shi Feng estimated an 80% chance. But only 20 minutes remained. That timetable called for a small party of level 5 elites, not 2 poorly equipped players. Failure carried its own disaster. Road of Forging offered only 1 chance. Losing now meant losing forging talent for good. Looking from the chieftain to his inventory, Shi Feng reluctantly faced the option he had avoided, the Abyssal Blade. Magic weapons demanded a backlash, but their successful wielders became famous top-tier experts. Shi Feng remembered the madman, Windchaser, whose magic weapon was Evil Spirit's Roar. With 1 bow, Windchaser had held an entire city against thousands of players. Windchaser had done more than hold the line. From beyond 100 yards, a single arrow had killed outstandingly extraordinary, guild leader of imposing expert. If Windchaser could control that power, Shi Feng refused to believe that a reincarnated veteran should lose to experts who had not even matured yet. System asked whether he wished to bind the Abyssal Blade. Shi Feng drew 1 deep breath. The quest, the chieftain, and the backlash all narrowed into 1 choice. He accepted. Price struck instantly. Strength poured out of Shi Feng as his levels fell one after another, level 3, level 2, level 1, until he reached level 0. Then the flow reversed. Power surged back through him, leaving his body stronger than it had been at level 3. Shi Feng opened the Abyssal Blade's attributes and froze. The one-handed magic weapon carried 24 attack power, raised every attribute by 10, increased attack speed by 3, and ignored 5 levels of a monster's level advantage. Rest was just as shocking. Every attack had a 15% chance to deal double damage, plus a 10% chance to inflict Doom Curse and cut every enemy stat by 30% for 20 seconds. For a swordsman, all skill levels rose by 2, and every future level would grant 2 extra free ability points. The Abyssal Blade's window kept unfolding. It was only level 0, but it could grow by devouring 10 pieces of level 5 bronze equipment and 1 level 5 mysterious iron piece. Beyond that waited an evolution route whose method was simply marked unknown. Additional skill 1 was Phantom Kill. For 30 seconds, Shi Feng could command a doppelganger carrying every one of his skills and half his attributes. Better still, original and duplicate could exchange positions. The price was a 5-minute cooldown. Additional skill 2 was Abyssal Bind. It could freeze an enemy in place and strip away 100% of its defense for 3 seconds. 3 seconds sounded brief, until the 1-minute cooldown showed how valuable that opening truly was. Then came 9 Dragon Slash, 9 phantom abyssal blades under the wielder's control. Each could deal up to 30% damage, and the formation would persist for 20 seconds before entering its own 5-minute cooldown. Its history was even heavier. Master Smith Ollis's had forged the blade from the Black Dragon King's fangs. It ranked only 31st among 36 famed swords, yet carried a dragon's curse, failed to suppress its eventual backlash, and every attribute would be permanently halved. The abyssal blade could neither be dropped nor traded. Shi Feng was bound to both its godlike strength and its future reckoning. And if the 31st famed sword was already this monstrous, imagining the weapon ranked first was almost absurd. Lackey glanced sideways and finally saw the number beside Shi Feng's name, level 0. His face tightened in shock. The chieftain had already seemed impossible before the binding. Now he could not understand how they were supposed to fight it at all. Shi Feng answered Blackie's fear with a plan. He would pull aggro first, only then was Blackie to attack madly from range. With the fragile Cursomancer held back, Shi Feng took 1 step forward and charged the kobold chieftain alone. Wind Blade erased the distance in a blink. Before the chieftain could react, 2 black sword streaks crossed its neck. Blood burst free, and damage numbers of 63 and 128 rose together, the second strike doubled by the Abyssal Blade. As the giant axe came up, Shi Feng drove level 4 chop through an exposed gap for another 105 damage. The axe smashed a crater into empty ground. Already outside its path, Shi Feng answered with 3 violent lines of thundering flash. One exchange had erased more than 600 HP. Even Shi Feng was startled by the famed sword's might. From a safer distance, Blackie simply stared. The level 0 swordsman he had feared for was striking harder than either of them had imagined possible. Chieftain's own blood became a stimulant. Roaring, it ripped the giant axe back into motion and bombarded Shi Feng without pause. The barrage was so violent that a level 5 shield warrior or guardian knight would have been killed instantly. Yet binding the blade had raised more than Shi Feng's damage. Its attributes activated 3 hidden basic skills vital to melee combat. They let him sustain extraordinary dodges and counter movements inside the barrage. Without the abyssal blade, he would already have died. Lackey realized he had been staring and hurried to help. He waved his staff, finished the curse, and sent a dark arrow into the chieftain. The result was only 17 damage. Against a normal level 5 monster, the same attack could exceed 50. Lackey could hardly reconcile the numbers. His spell had fallen to a third of its normal damage, while Shi Feng repeatedly broke 100 with a sword. Whatever level 0 meant on the interface, the man fighting in front of him possessed monstrous attack power. Shi Feng suddenly drove chop through that gap. Black steel met the descending axe with a violent crash. The force cost Shi Feng more than 30 HP and knocked him back 3 steps, but the giant axe recoiled and paused in midair. His strength was barely enough. The interruption had worked. The recoiling axe was more than a lucky block. Shi Feng had interrupted the chieftain's attack, briefly ending its offensive. Half a year later, every serious main tank would need this high-level technique to survive a boss's continuous assault. Right now, almost no player even knew it existed. Shi Feng lunged before that pause could vanish. Gripping the abyssal blade with all his strength, he carved 4 streaks across the chieftain's unarmored flesh. The amplified counter stripped away 300 HP. With Blackie's continued support, the boss had only a little over 900 remaining. Chieftain roared and hurled its giant axe aside. 2 machetes flashed from its waist. With the axe, it had fought like a berserker, crushing through raw violence. Now it moved like a dual-wielding swordsman, blending that strength with enough agility to change the battle's entire rhythm. One machete forced Shi Feng to dodge. The other was already chasing him. He caught it on the abyssal blade, showering the mine with sparks. Against that relentless alternating rhythm, the 9 phantom blades of 9 dragon slash kept circling and cutting, preventing the chieftain from controlling the exchange. Shi Feng refused to give it room for a counterattack. Pitch-black chains erupted from the abyssal blade, Abyssal Bind. For 3 seconds, the chieftain could not move, and its defense fell by 100%. In a battle where a blink could kill, that was an eternity. Every phantom blade struck, dragging the boss toward 200 HP. 3 seconds expired. With a howl, the chieftain swelled to twice its former size and became completely berserk, gaining at least 30% more strength. Shi Feng's attacks and life-saving skills were all cooling down. The monster seemed to understand his predicament. A mocking look crossed its face as both machetes rose. At the moment of death, Shi Feng caught movement in the corner of his eye. An ordinary kobold miner was respawning. That tiny change in the battlefield was enough. He triggered gravity liberation, followed it with wind blade, slipped past the descending machetes, and shot toward the miner. Chieftain stamped hard enough to launch itself after him. Blackie felt a chill crawl down his back, yet his chanting never stopped. Dark arrow after dark arrow chased the boss through the mine. While Shi Feng used the miner's position to escape the killing line, Blackie kept the last 200 HP under constant pressure. Relentless damage finally exhausted the chieftain's remaining life. The giant boss fell, and experience surged into Shi Feng, carrying him straight to 76% of level 1. After paying 3 whole levels to bind the abyssal blade, he had already begun the climb back. And the system made the victory historic. Shi Feng was the first player in God's domain to kill a chieftain monster. The achievement increased the chieftain's item drops by 200% and awarded him 10 points of reputation in Starmoon Kingdom. The defeated chieftain's body suddenly began to swell. It expanded farther and farther, then burst with a thunderous boom. The promised bonus became physical all at once. Equipment and other drops scattered across the mine floor in every direction. Copper coins paved the ground, their warm glow shining through the mine as if it were celebrating for them. Blackie could not celebrate yet. He dropped to the floor drenched in cold sweat, all strength gone, and ignored the treasure around him. Every second of that battle had toyed with his heart. Copper still glowed across the mine floor, but Blackie's attention had shifted from the treasure to Shi Feng. The terror of the chieftain fight was barely behind them, and Shi Feng was already standing there as calmly as ever. Blackie burst out that they had won and loudly declared Brother Feng his idol. Blackie had known a very different Shi Feng, skilled but impatient enough to fight endlessly over ordinary equipment. The man before him acted without hesitation and never lost his serenity. Most of the time that strength remained hidden. When it finally moved, Blackie thought, it was like a dormant dragon waking and shocking the world. Shi Feng answered the outburst with a slight smile. Wasn't Gentle Snow supposed to be Blackie's idol? Blackie refused to choose. Gentle Snow still qualified, but Brother Feng had just killed a monster that even true professional gamers would struggle against. To Blackie, staying near an expert like this was shelter beneath a great tree. Blackie made the request that mattered. Teach him how to play a cursomancer well enough to become a professional gamer. Following Shi Feng instead of entering Shadow had already spared him life as an anonymous gold farmer. Shi Feng knew the loyalty beneath Blackie's blunt manner. This time, he would not let that loyalty go unrewarded. He simply agreed. Shi Feng's first question was how Blackie had assigned his points. Blackie had placed everything into intelligence, the obvious choice for magical damage. Shi Feng did not tell him to abandon it yet. He set a threshold instead, reached 20 intelligence, then put every later point into agility. The unconventional order startled Blackie, but he listened. Shi Feng's confidence came from a cursomancer he remembered from his previous life. That player had broken with tradition by investing heavily in agility. His spells came quickly and fiercely, and in player combat he destroyed assassins, the class meant to punish mages at close range, without allowing them to land even one hit. The build eventually changed the entire profession's habits. Blackie's training settled, they finally gathered the chieftain's drops. The first kill had been extraordinarily generous. 8 bronze items, 1 gray giant axe, 2 plate pieces, 2 leather pieces, and 3 cloth pieces, plus 273 coppers. 3 skill books completed the haul, Mock for shield warriors, Silent Steps for assassins, and Evil Whip for cursomancers. Evil Whip was exceptionally rare and supplied both control and damage. Its 3-second cast formed 5 thorns that bound a target inside a fixed area. Forcing an escape broke the thorns for repeated damage, with 20 base damage from each, and the skill cooled down in 20 seconds. Shi Feng handed it to Blackie without hesitation, then added 2 pieces of level 2 cloth armor. Gray Giant Axe offered a different kind of opportunity. Its requirements included 15 strength, and it carried 21 attack power, strength plus 5, endurance plus 2, and full durability at 30. In a berserker's hands, it promised terrifying violence. Shi Feng smiled as the commercial angle became obvious. Create enough hype around this weapon, and it would sell for a great deal of money. Once the loot was collected, Shi Feng and Blackie left the mine and returned to Master Jack's smithy. Jack was still hammering steel when Shi Feng approached him respectfully. The chieftain had not merely been a source of treasure, its death was the final proof the hidden quest demanded. Shi Feng produced the kobold chieftain's skull and reported the kill. Master Jack glanced over the skull and confirmed that Shi Feng had truly completed the task. Satisfaction replaced his working focus. The young swordsman had proved that his earlier confidence was not empty. Jack declared that Shi Feng now possessed the right to inherit his forging skills. System answered at once. Hidden quest, Road of Forging, completed. Shi Feng learned forging and became a basic forging apprentice. He also obtained the talent Forging Genius and received 10 pieces of 100 refinement steel. The chieftain kill had now paid him 3 times over in combat rewards, saleable equipment, and a permanent production path. Forging Genius was far more valuable than its short description suggested. After any successful forging, it gave a fixed chance to add 2 proficiency points. Normally, a basic forging apprentice succeeded at common equipment only 20% of the time, and even a success had just a 40% chance to grant 1 point. Doubling that possible gain could accelerate Shi Feng's promotion by several times. Still inside Master Jack's smithy, Shi Feng measured the profession he had just earned against its real cost. Intermediate forging apprentice demanded 1,000 proficiency points. An average player needed more than 10 days, and only if a continuous stream of materials survived the profession's brutal failure rate. Shi Feng was not an average apprentice. Forging talent would spare part of that waste, while each piece of 100 refinement steel could raise a bronze equipment attempt success rate by 10%. Combined with the Book of Forging, the advantages made him want to begin immediately. And the economics stopped him. Gathering materials himself would consume too much time, buying them in bulk demanded money. Worse, common equipment would lose money even when successfully made. Only bronze equipment promised a good price, and Shi Feng possessed no forging design for it. One answer existed, Deathly Forest. Its bronze equipment forging design produced gear that was cheap to make and carried excellent attributes. Shi Feng remembered forgers becoming rich from that recipe in his previous life. The conclusion was immediate. Deathly Forest was a must-go. Master Jack called after him. In all his years of forging, he had never seen a magic weapon. His eyes had fixed on the rusty, pitch-black sword at Shi Feng's waist. It looked like a fire poker, but that disguise could not fool a master forger. Shi Feng let him examine it. NPCs could not steal player items, so the bound sword was safe. He could indulge Jack's curiosity, then ask for a secret silver one-handed sword, a weapon capable of displaying a swordsman's real strength. For more than 10 minutes, Jack praised the blade's delicate construction and marveled at its strength. He returned it reluctantly, then turned grave. The sword was magnificent, but its curse grew stronger whenever its power was unleashed. Eventually, it could devour its wielder into the endless abyss. Shi Feng already knew the danger. It was why he had hesitated before binding the blade. What he lacked was the present strength to apply any remedy. Jack explained why. Awakens had forged this unique weapon, one of 36 famed swords empowered by terrifying existences sealed inside after death. Jack smiled. The curse could be weakened. His method required a lucky stone, the rare resource Shi Feng knew as the Star Crystal. That revelation stunned Shi Feng in turn. Across Star Moon Kingdom, the master forgers capable of using one against a magic weapon's curse could be counted on a single hand. Shi Feng asked whether Jack could do it now. Jack needed several moments to recover from seeing that the young swordsman actually possessed the resource. Then he forced himself back into an indifferent pose and promised half an hour. Blackie clutched his stomach, fled toward the forest, and burst out laughing. Half an hour later, Shi Feng received the abyssal blade and read its changed description. Awakens had forged the 31st famed sword from the Black Dragon King's fangs. Jack's Star Crystal remodeling had greatly reduced its backlash, but failure would still invoke the dragon's curse and permanently cut every attribute by 50%. Remodeled description finally let Shi Feng breathe easier. The abyssal blade's curse was still dangerous, but its backlash would not become overwhelming in the short term. Satisfied that the immediate crisis was contained, he stored the black weapon away. Only then did Shi Feng notice Lonely Snow's stack of messages. Everyone asked where he was and how much longer he needed. The weapon problem had made him forget their appointment completely. Lonely Snow had already waited more than half an hour. Shi Feng replied that he was coming immediately. He could not undo the delay, but he intended to compensate Lonely Snow inside Deathly Forest. When he called Blackie to the dungeon, the cursomancer brightened. His new spells finally had somewhere worth testing. At Deathly Forest, level 2 players seemed to be everywhere. Recruiters shouted for violent damage dealers and powerful healers, some even guaranteeing a clear. Shi Feng moved through the noise with Blackie, unimpressed by all that early confidence. The advertisements did not fool him. In Shi Feng's previous life, Deathly Forest had stopped player after player for a long time. It was not cleared until most challengers were level 5. These level 2 parties had no idea what they were walking into. Only Snow spotted them and waved urgently. The moment Shi Feng reached him, the warrior blurted that his friends were already losing patience and hurried both newcomers toward the gathering point. Shi Feng's leisurely arrival only made Lonely Snow look more anxious. Only Snow's friends looked Shi Feng over and laughed. This was the great expert who had kept them waiting. They had imagined someone extraordinary, not an ordinary-looking player in equipment they considered trash. Blackie's presence did nothing to soften their first judgment. Waving slowly but surely, the handsome ranger leading the group cut in. Other parties had already entered, and any more delay could cost them the first kill. Blackie tried to argue with the mockers, but Shi Feng stopped him. They had caused the long wait. He could tolerate a few insults. The instant they partied up, Shi Feng's status became visible. Level 1. The group's hostility flared. A member accused him of entering a level 2 dungeon only to swindle equipment, and wordless Summer Knight demanded to know why they should accept someone who would get them wiped. Even Lonely Snow was stunned. A beta tester should have reached level 2 by now. Waving slowly asked whether Shi Feng had died and lost progress. Shi Feng answered honestly, no. He simply declared that level 1 was enough for Deathly Forest. Waving slowly told Shi Feng to leave. Lonely Snow protested that there had to be a misunderstanding and asked them to try once. Wordless Summer Knight refused. A dungeon death still meant losing 10% experience, and he demanded to know whether this supposed noob could repay everyone. Shi Feng left to form a party of his own with Blackie beside him. Wordless Summer Knight warned Lonely Snow that he would regret choosing Shi Feng for 10 years, 20. Lonely Snow did not argue. He lowered his head, walked away from his old group, and hurried after Shi Feng. Waving slowly watched Lonely Snow leave and narrowed his eyes. What could an underequipped level 1 player have done to earn that kind of loyalty? Battle to the end dismissed the mystery. Losing Lonely Snow meant nothing. With so many level 2 players nearby, they could simply recruit another. Back at the entrance, Shi Feng and Blackie began again from nothing. Shi Feng called for 4 more people, but set no rigid level or equipment requirement. A veteran gamer was enough. Lonely Snow stood nearby after choosing them, while the new party listing still read, 2 waiting for 4. Shi Feng's low requirements worked at first. Level 2 players crowded around him, eager to escape the usual demand for several pieces of common equipment, an expensive standard so early in the game. A cleric called out his level. A shield warrior proudly displayed a common plate arm guard. Within moments, Shi Feng invited 4 people. Their pride lasted only until they inspected the leader. He was level 1. One after another, all 4 quit in outrage, shouting that they would not carry a noob into the Deathly Forest or hand him free experience and equipment. The entrance erupted in laughter. Players called Shi Feng a freeloader who had overestimated himself. Blackie finally snapped. They could leave if they wanted. Nobody was begging them. He alone knew how absurd their judgment was. This so-called noob had killed a rare elite and at level 0 a level 5 chieftain. Lonely Snow made his choice official and joined them. The spectators stared. Someone with brand new plate armor and boots, equipment that looked common rather than trash, had willingly placed his trust in a level 1 leader. Shi Feng's active party finally rose from 2 members to 3. Only Snow's commitment did not solve everything. More than 10 minutes passed without another recruit. 3 people could not enter and clear the dungeon alone. The crowd's suspicion had hardened around Shi Feng's level, leaving his party stranded at the entrance despite its 2 loyal members. Waving slowly returned at the head of a full-looking group. Endless Summer Knight, his cleric, greeted Shi Feng with a mocking, "Brother expert." Their side had already recruited 3 strong members, he boasted, and every newcomer wore at least 2 or 3 pieces of level 1 common equipment. Waving slowly first addressed Lonely Snow. Following Shi Feng offered no future, he warned. There was still time to reconsider before the dungeon opened to them. He even guaranteed Lonely Snow would not suffer a loss. Lonely Snow did not move. His position beside Shi Feng was answer enough. Only then did Waving slowly inspect Blackie properly. The clothing looked new. The staff in his hand was clearly valuable, and Blackie was level 2. Waving slowly changed tactics at once, smiling as he invited Blackie into his elite party, where leveling, grinding, and dungeon diving would supposedly become easy. Blackie's answer was immediate: get lost. He leveled the Blackwood staff at Waving slowly and switched on the equipment halos he had kept hidden. Bronze light flared from 3 separate items. Against that display, the rival's proud collection of level 1 common equipment suddenly looked painfully ordinary. Blackie chuckled and accepted one part of their argument. Joining noobs really would burden him. Then he made the target unmistakable. He meant Waving slowly's group. The insult landed harder than the equipment reveal. The self-proclaimed elites had tried to recruit an expert who considered them beneath him. Waving slowly's face turned beet red. Unable to win the exchange, he issued a challenge instead. Let the Deathly Forest decide which party was superior. They would see who cleared it first. Then he spun around and marched away, still convinced that any group led by a level 1 noob had no chance. As they left, Wordless Summer muttered that Blackie was only one powerful damage dealer. A shield warrior agreed. Their party consisted of veteran gamers, and dungeon experience mattered more than a single expert's gear. It was less an analysis than a reassurance after the 3 bronze halos had shaken them. Moment Waving slowly's party left, Shi Feng's recruitment problem vanished. Applications poured in. At this stage of the game, 3 bronze items were undeniable proof of an expert, and the crowd judged Blackie strong enough to compensate for a level 1 leader. Now Shi Feng could afford standards. He screened applicants instead of inviting blindly while the 4 deserters watched in bitter regret. Their places were gone. Shi Feng would not offer them twice. Shi Feng had finally gained the luxury of screening applicants for his last 3 party slots. Then a disturbance erupted across the southwest side of the Deathly Forest entrance. Players ran toward it in waves, and the lively space around Shi Feng emptied almost at once. Blackie stared as if he no longer trusted his own eyes. Shi Feng was startled, too. In a minor place like Red Leaf Town, they had somehow encountered Blackie's idol and one of God's domain's most important rising figures, Goddess Gentle Snow. Gentle Snow wore gorgeous silver plate armor, its hard lines framing an angelic beauty and commanding figure. Her temperament was colder than the metal. Shi Feng had known famous women in his previous life, yet even he had never seen anyone who matched her complete presence. Women beside Gentle Snow were famous experts as well. Zhao Yueru possessed a devilishly enticing beauty and an easy confidence. Zhao Yuer was far more timid. Together, the 3 formed a spectacle bright enough to make almost every other party at the entrance irrelevant. Hundreds surrounded the 3 women, each hoping to be noticed, and none succeeded. Zhao Yuer whispered that the crowd was frightening and suggested leaving. Zhao Yueru laughed away her fear. With Gentle Snow present, she said, not one of those men would dare cross the final distance. Gentle Snow had not come for attention. Elite monsters provided decent loot, but Deathly Forest offered a better chance at skill books. Her party had learned fewer than 3 skills apiece, limiting how much strength they could use and threatening to slow every level that followed. Shi Feng appreciated the view, but he was no inexperienced boy. Years as Shadow's captain had cured him of losing his head around beautiful women. He turned back to his real problem and called again. An efficient Deathly Forest party, 3 waiting for 3, seeking a healer and main tank. No answer came. Not one player even glanced toward him. Every eye remained fixed on Gentle Snow, Zhao Yueru, and Zhao Yuer. Minutes earlier, Blackie's bronze equipment had made Shi Feng's group desirable. Now even that proof of expertise was invisible beneath the newcomer's fame. One dismissive sentence from Zhao Yueru finished what the spectacle had begun. The crowd stopped treating Shi Feng's group as a serious alternative, despite the expert standing beside him. Yet Gentle Snow did not immediately turn away. Her gaze settled on the supposedly ordinary level 1 swordsman. Most eyes, Shi Feng was painfully ordinary. Gentle Snow sensed something else, the contained spirit of a hidden sword. Her attention dropped to the weapon at his waist, a pitch-black, rusty blade crude enough to resemble a fire poker. That unimpressive object concerned her most of all. Zhao Yueru noticed the prolonged stare and asked what was wrong. Gentle Snow offered no theory she could not prove. Perhaps it was only her imagination, she said. She turned away from Shi Feng and urged the others to finish recruiting so they could enter the dungeon. Damage was complete. Hundreds queued before Zhao Yueru while Shi Feng's side remained deserted. He could only resent the timing. Blackie, staring at the fortunate applicants with naked envy, proposed the obvious solution. Why not abandon their own recruitment and go over there too? Shi Feng told Blackie to scram. His friend had forgotten loyalty the instant an idol appeared. Lonely Snow, at least, had admired the women briefly, offered a few honest praises, and then returned to helping recruit. With no new members and the rival queue still packed, Shi Feng's search continued. After Shi Feng's rebuke, Blackie finally kept quiet. He could only stare enviously at the applicants crowding around Gentle Snow, while Lonely Snow remained beside their painfully empty recruiting spot. More than 10 minutes passed with no recruit on either side, yet the equality was cruelly deceptive. Nobody wanted Shi Feng's party. Gentle Snow had a stream of candidates, but none could satisfy her standards. One party stood in heaven, the other on earth. Shi Feng's time was too valuable to waste, so he made an exception and raised his voice over the crowd. An efficient Deathly Forest party, an expert leading, a clear in one attempt, no level restriction. They needed 3 healers or damage dealers. Claim drew contempt instead of admiration. Tens of level 2 players had already died inside and returned, calling Deathly Forest impossible. If this level 1 leader accepted anyone, was he implying he could clear it almost alone? To the spectators, it was shameless bait. Ridiculous or not, the offer mattered to players nobody else would take. Within moments, dozens of level 1 applicants rushed over, transforming Shi Feng's deserted patch into a lively crowd. The onlookers only laughed harder. Surely he was desperate enough to recruit noobs. Gentle Snow noticed the commotion and briefly reconsidered Shi Feng's strange behavior. Then she smoothed her elegant hair and dismissed the thought. However unusual he seemed, he was still only level 1. How could he possibly conquer Deathly Forest? Her standard remained mercilessly concrete. Level 2 Summoner, Magic Attack 28, 150 HP, 8 Defense, Movement Speed 4. Fail. Next. The rejected applicant withdrew, and a tense Cursomancer immediately stepped forward to submit his own attributes. Across the way, Shi Feng examined far weaker data. Low levels and poor equipment did not bother him. These were still real players, and with 6 members they had a strong chance of clearing. as long as the newcomers had not already squandered their 8 free attribute points. His relaxed invitation was not an absence of standards. Shield warriors and guardian knights who had poured everything into strength were rejected. So were weapon-class players who had ignored agility. Shi Feng needed builds he could shape, not mistakes the dungeon would punish. And a tall, muscular youth named Kola stepped forward with hope in his eyes. He was only a level 1 guardian knight and owned just one piece of level 0 common equipment. But all 8 attribute points remained untouched. He would assign them however Shi Feng required. Shi Feng was genuinely surprised. Guardian Knights attacked so poorly that most needed teammates just to level. Even then, they usually spent strength to speed up the grind. Kola had somehow reached level 1 while preserving every point. That alone marked him as unusual. Kola, Shi Feng repeated the name while studying the youth's face and powerful frame. Both felt strangely familiar. The impression tugged at memories from the future, confirming that this was not merely another low-level player hoping to be carried. Shi Feng also understood the crowd around Kola. These level 1 players expected no miracle. They wanted one lucky dungeon run, perhaps 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, and then a better chance of entering a large guild. His party was meant to be a stepping stone. Shi Feng told Kola he could join, but his grave tone stopped any celebration. Carrying a level 1 novice through Deathly Forest would not be easy. If Kola took the equipment he earned there and immediately joined another elite party, Shi Feng's effort would buy him nothing. What Shi Feng wanted was a stable party. Future vacancies would be filled for reliability first. Anyone entering Deathly Forest with him had to commit for the long term and answer whenever he called for a dungeon run, no refusing because something else came up. Then he asked Kola, what would he choose? Shi Feng's question silenced the applicants. Joining him meant more than one dungeon run. They could not take his help, grow stronger, and then leave for another party or a guild. Since guild membership was the usual shortcut to power, these underqualified players were being asked to gamble their future on an inconspicuous level 1 swordsman. Kola had not expected such a condition, yet he could not call it unfair. A person could not reasonably demand to be trained and equipped, then disappear the moment a stronger organization offered better benefits. The real problem was persuasion. Kola could accept the principle, but Shi Feng still looked too ordinary to inspire the others' trust. Lackey supplied the missing authority. He furiously asked whether novices unwanted by dungeon parties truly imagined themselves future experts, or whether they took Shi Feng's team for fools. Kola looked at Blackie's level 2 status and 3 bronze items, decided the expert was right, and respectfully promised that his little brother would fulfill his assigned role. Praise made Blackie uncomfortable. He knew he was only impersonating the expert Kola believed him to be. Yet that belief also struck deeper than the joke. Blackie now wanted to become worthy of the title. Shi Feng quietly gave him a thumbs up. The deadlock was over, and the committed recruits completed his 6-person party. Zhao Yuuru called Shi Feng's behavior mere grandstanding, but her discomfort had a simpler source. She was accustomed to becoming the center of attention wherever she went. Today, even mockery revolved around this inconspicuous novice instead. The crowd's jeers did not soothe her pride. They only confirmed that Shi Feng had stolen the stage. Until Snow told Yuru to stop wasting time before the frontline players pulled farther ahead. Shi Feng might possess something unusual, but his level and recruiting methods fell short of her definition of an expert. Ouroboros accepted only experts, so she discarded the thought of inviting him. Still irritated, Yuuru rejected a qualified swordsman who glared at the oblivious Shi Feng as though the insult were his fault. Aware of the judgment behind him, Shi Feng activated Deathly Forest. The system offered 3 difficulties: normal, hard, and hell. He selected hell without a moment's hesitation. The transfer passage changed from silvery gray to pitch black, and within that darkness appeared the flickering shape of a skull, its mouth stretched open. Every party member received the same warning. Hell mode increased the death penalty by 100%. Their faces went white. This was not a theatrical choice made for the crowd. Failure would punish them twice as severely. Blackie needed to know that Shi Feng had not gambled blindly. Shi Feng answered with a confident smile. If he were not certain, he would never have chosen it. Shi Feng ended the debate with action. He told them to go, then crossed the pitch-black threshold first. Blackie followed him. Lonely Snow entered next with his head still dazed by the risk, but his loyalty was settled. Whatever path Shi Feng had chosen, he was prepared to follow it to the end. Remaining 3 lingered outside. Kola broke their hesitation. The expert had already gone in, he argued, so what right did 3 level 1 novices have to hold back? Besides, merely being able to say they had entered hell mode would be a kind of glory. The other 2 accepted his logic, and all 3 followed the party inside. Island seized Gentle Snow's recruitment area. These level 2 players knew an elite party had failed even normal mode, yet Shi Feng had taken a team made mostly of level 1 novices into hell. Zhao Yuru made Gentle Snow confirm what they had seen, then laughed that despair must have driven him to suicide. Gentle Snow did not laugh. She stared seriously at the flickering skull before leading her completed party away. Gentle Snow left the crowded entrance with her completed party and chose normal mode. If that run went smoothly, they would challenge hard mode next. It was a measured plan, the exact opposite of the gamble already unfolding beyond the Black Skull. Inside hell mode, the deathly forest was dark, gloomy, and cut by sudden cold winds. Shi Feng stood calmly ahead. Behind him, all 5 companions packed themselves against the entrance, too frightened to move and risk drawing something out of the trees. Blackie anxiously asked why a cold wind kept brushing his back. Shi Feng told him to show an expert's temperament. Hell mode was nothing special. Its monsters were merely smarter, more tactical, stronger in every statistic, and more numerous. That was all. Their looks said that smarter monsters alone could double a fight's difficulty. Shi Feng stopped joking. He would explain the strategy once and they had better listen. If anyone failed to follow it, their life was forfeit. The ridicule vanished. Nobody wanted to be expelled or die here. Shi Feng built the formation around survival. He and Kola would lead. Lonely Snow would guard Drowsy Sloth in the center. Blackie and the Summoner would cover the rear. No matter what moved around them, nobody could break formation or attack before Shi Feng gave the order. Kola had earned that frontline position by following Shi Feng's build exactly. Every free ability point had gone into endurance, bringing him to 310 HP. He could not replace Shi Feng as the team's shield, but he could survive long enough to share the pressure. God's domain did not funnel parties down convenient corridors. Its dungeons were vast, open spaces where players could wander for hours without seeing a boss. Deathly Forest was smaller than some, but its darkness could still separate a careless member from the formation and swallow the root behind them. Shi Feng knew what happened to players who became lost. In his previous life, they had died here repeatedly, often without glimpsing a monster. Those fortunate enough to find one were wiped anyway. Only after countless expert attempts did players accept the verdict. Deathly Forest was impossible below level 5. Their first test was a level 2 elite Night Rabbit. In ordinary circumstances, its rank might have sounded manageable. Here, in hell mode, nobody treated it lightly. Kola swallowed his fear, tightened his grip on the shield, and carefully stepped into the creature's attack range. Night Rabbit reacted instantly. The person-height beast burst straight at Kola. He did not panic. He turned and retreated toward the formation, catching each claw strike on his shield exactly as instructed. The lure worked, but every impact drove him backward with terrifying force. Single blocked hit dealt 42 damage. Then another followed. By the time Kola reached the front of the formation, 1/3 of his 310 HP was already gone. Shi Feng still gave no attack order, so every weapon behind Kola remained motionless. Drowsy Sloth reacted the moment Kola entered his casting range and sent healing into him. His awareness was good, the arithmetic was not. Each heal restored only 24 HP while the Night Rabbit's blocked strikes dealt 42. Even perfect timing could not stop Kola's health from falling. Kola fell below 1/3 HP. Blackie could endure the order no longer and asked, "Brother Feng, are we still not attacking?" To him, the choice of an oracle now looked disastrous. The weakest healer class was losing a race against every claw, yet Shi Feng still held the party back. "Hold on," Shi Feng said. Time dragged while Kola kept his shield between himself and the Night Rabbit. Every claw drove his health lower. At only 20% HP, he was still taking blows, and Shi Feng still refused to release the party. An arrow tore out of the trees. Lonely Snow could not turn in time. It struck Drowsy Sloth squarely in the chest, and a red damage number, 123, flared above the oracle. The rabbit had never been the only enemy. Shi Feng moved the instant the trap sprang. Sloth was to use life payment, converting the damage he had suffered into healing for Kola. Blackie would restrain the rabbit while Kola recovered. Everyone else would attack it. Lonely Snow alone was ordered to follow Shi Feng. An oracle healed less than a priest, but its higher HP made it difficult to kill in one shot. Life payment was exactly why Shi Feng had chosen one for Deathly Forest. Now that the hidden hand had exposed itself, he used Wind Blade and became a phantom at its heels. Fleeing Attacker was a level 2 special elite Night Ranger with 1,500 HP. Shi Feng locked it down with 9 chains, then drove Chop and Thundering Flash into the opening. 4 damage numbers, 81, 98, 119, and 124, stripped away roughly a quarter of its health. Shi Feng wasted none of those 3 seconds. Slash after slash struck the Night Ranger's chest at its vital point. By the time the chains released it, no more than 700 HP remained. Enraged, the Ranger swept both blades around him like a gale. Only Snow arrived at the decisive instant. His charge stunned the Night Ranger and shattered the momentum of its gale. Shi Feng cut for the neck while Lonely Snow brought his large axe down beside him. When the Ranger recovered, only a remnant of health remained. Night Ranger woke swinging. It hacked Lonely Snow backward for 64 damage, then whipped both blades toward Shi Feng's neck. Steel rang. Shi Feng had parried the strike. He lifted the Ranger, threw it back, finished it with several cuts, pocketed the 2 drops, and ran for Kola. Only Snow stayed where he had fallen, staring after Shi Feng. The speed, the parry, even the throw were unlike any monster fight he understood. For one stunned moment, he forgot that the party still needed help. There was such a way to kill monsters. Back at the rabbit, Shi Feng turned rescue into instruction. Kola could not keep planting his feet and trading health for every claw. He needed to read the attack, retreat at the right instant, and reserve his shield for the blows he could not avoid. That difference meant survival in God's domain. Healing usually could not keep pace with incoming damage. Adding a second healer only weakened the party's offense and still invited a wipe. Most players would need months to abandon traditional game habits. Shi Feng intended to shorten that education to one dungeon. Shi Feng was not teaching them merely to clear one pull. He wanted these players as the foundation of his future workshop. The level 1 recruits still wondered why an apparent noob was commanding an expert, and some resentment lingered. But his advice made sense, so they followed it. Kola changed first. When the night rabbit lunged, he stepped back and let the claws miss, blocking only when he had to. The healer's burden dropped, and killing the elite became easier. Around him, the skeptical recruits began to reconsider Shi Feng. Perhaps this supposed noob was not unbearable after all. Shi Feng only smiled at the recruits' changing attitude. Kola's adjustment was promising, but the future first-rate tank was still a beginner. A true expert would dodge without giving ground, keeping the monster fixed so ranged attackers never lost damage. Kola needed experience, reactions, and much more training. Elite fell moments later. Alongside 3 coppers lay Whirlwind Slash, a berserker skill book. The recruits stared. Common skills could sell for 1 silver, so 1 book from the first elite made Hell mode seem impossibly generous. Shi Feng knew better. Its rate was only 3 or 4 times hard modes. He handed the book to a stupefied Lonely Snow. Shi Feng next gave Kola the level 1 bronze defensive plate armor dropped by the Night Ranger. Kola could barely close his mouth as he thanked him. The armor added 14 defense and lifted his maximum HP to 350. Everyone but Shi Feng and Blackie looked on with envy. Outside a dungeon, bronze gear was the mark of an expert. With Kola better protected, the party supported him and quickly finished the other Night Rabbit. A second skill book appeared, Restore, meant for healers. This reward mattered even more to their survival than its market price. Restore took 2 seconds to cast and healed an oracle for 37 HP. Better still, it did not share Life Prayer's cooldown, so Drowsy Sloth could alternate the 2 and erase the elite's damage. A book like this could sell for 2 or 3 silvers. Drowsy Sloth thanked everyone repeatedly, but Shi Feng only smiled. Skill books were meant to be used. Healing books were rare almost everywhere else, but Deathly Forest existed to build a player's foundation. In Hell mode, basic healing skills dropped often enough that Shi Feng had once found 4 in a single run. He valued the stronger party more than this 1 book's resale price and led them onward. More than an hour of successful pulls followed. By the time the trees opened, every recruit carried 1 or 2 bronze pieces and Blackie had 5. Their strength now surpassed ordinary elite parties. More importantly, every gain had come through Shi Feng's commands. When he gave an order, no one questioned it anymore. Flat Grassland held Deathly Forest's first boss. Willie was a level 3 chieftain with 6,000 HP, a ferocious night rabbit as tall as 2 people, its paws armed with steel claws that had shredded countless players. 7 elite night rabbits guarded it at close range, packed tightly enough that attacking one threatened to bring them all. Shi Feng positioned the others near the large rock, then slipped into bushes 40 yards from the 7 guards. Everyone understood that he meant to lure one away. They also knew a swordsman had no ranged attack. Time dragged on as he watched without moving. One mistake would send 7 elites and a boss into them, a certain party wipe. And a cool breeze shook a dead leaf loose. Shi Feng tracked it drifting toward the guard nearest Willie, picked up a small stone and tossed it gently. To everyone watching, the stone was headed straight for the rabbit. Their minds leapt to the same conclusion. They were finished. At the final instant, the dead leaf crossed between stone and rabbit. The stone struck the leaf and drove it into the guard. The night rabbit spun around but found only a leaf, no attacker to lock onto. Confused by the painful, impossible impact, it began searching blindly while its companions remained unaware. Shi Feng's impossible lure had begun. Only Snow finally found his voice. That shot had been too godly. Everyone else could only nod, eyes wide. Shi Feng had struck a drifting leaf at exactly the right instant, confused an elite's hatred, and left it searching for an attacker it could not identify. No ordinary novice could judge distance and timing like that. Shi Feng walked to the rock, smiled, and rested a hand on gluttonous Mouse's shoulder. The rest was up to the summoner. Mouse immediately panicked. Good parties were scarce, and one led by an expert was nearly impossible to enter. If he failed now and got expelled, he would regret it for a very long time. Shi Feng immediately eased his fear. Mouse would not enter danger. He only had to summon a flame sprite and follow instructions. Early summoners were weak because their creatures lacked power and Magic Bullet dealt little damage. Yet the right elemental summon could eventually turn one summoner into an army. Here, even simple speed was enough. Watching all this, Lonely Snow silently congratulated himself for following Shi Feng. Precision like that could not come without vast practice. The only explanation he could imagine was that Shi Feng had tested the game before release. In Lonely Snow's mind, the supposed novice was now unquestionably a beta tester expert. Blackie saw an opportunity. Cola was already almost certain to join their future workshop, but Lonely Snow had never chosen a direction, so Blackie casually asked what he planned to do. The question caught Lonely Snow off guard. He admitted that he had no grand ambition, he only hoped to earn some money by playing games. Blackie told him that his technique was decent and invited him to stay with them. Lonely Snow brightened at once. Traveling with an expert was more than he had hoped for. Blackie still kept up the act, warning that they did not accept just anyone and would judge his future performance. Lonely Snow happily thanked Brother Black. Only Blackie knew how bold that performance had been. He was borrowing Shi Feng's authority like a fox wearing a tiger's skin. Their workshop did not even exist yet. Its entire membership was Shi Feng and himself, and a debt of 16,000 credits hung over them. If Lonely Snow knew the truth, Blackie's impressive recruitment might collapse instantly. Gluttonous Mouse put Shi Feng's instructions into motion. The flame sprite ran beneath the large rock and 6 night rabbits charged after it. They could not match its speed. The summon kept circling the rock, holding all 6 in a mindless pursuit loop. Meanwhile, Cola took control of the lone guard already separated from the formation. Cola alternated shield blocks with his new Divine Strike. His 2 bronze pieces made the difference. Divine Strike dealt 26 damage, more than twice the 11 or 12 from a normal blow, and its added hatred kept the rabbit fixed on him. The party cut the isolated guard down quickly. 5 coppers dropped onto the grass. Now only the 6 circling guards remained. Shi Feng picked up another small stone and struck the rabbit running at the rear. It stopped, rubbed its head, and found him. Enraged, it bounded toward Shi Feng on powerful legs. The other 5 never looked back. They remained completely absorbed in chasing the flame sprite around the rock. Shi Feng measured the closing distance. At 20 yards, he gave the order, receive it. Cola rushed forward and drove Divine Strike into the rabbit's head. Its claws swept toward him, but Cola slipped sideways instead of taking the blow. He answered immediately with punishment, securing the handoff while the other 5 guards continued their useless chase. Everyone focus fire? The party collapsed on the night rabbit Cola had just received. It fell within 20 seconds. Watching Cola adjust to its attacks, Shi Feng silently applauded. After barely more than 10 battles, this novice was already reading the creature's patterns. Kill produced something far better than loose coins. A swordsman's skill book, Double Chop. It was an action-type technique requiring a sword, already usable at level 1, though its proficiency began at 0 out of 300. Double Chop delivered 2 rapid slashes, each worth 120% damage plus 15. It increased bleeding by 20% for 10 seconds, could stack 5 times, and cooled down in 8 seconds. Against a boss with a deep health pool, that was real explosive power. Shi Feng learned it without hesitation. A normal player would need time to make a new action skill feel natural. He did not. 10 years of swordsman combat were ingrained in his body, and once he possessed a familiar job skill, he could draw out its full potential. Shi Feng resumed the same disciplined method. He peeled the remaining 5 night rabbits away one after another, and the party killed them individually. When the last guard fell, golden light rose around Shi Feng. He had reached level 2, with Willie still waiting untouched beyond them. 5 guards also yielded bronze plate armor for a guardian knight. Equipped on Cola, it raised him to 390 HP and 56 defense. Shi Feng's own attributes now stood at Strength 32, Agility 30, Endurance 24, Intelligence 13, and Vitality 13. Their odds had improved. Once everyone had recovered, Shi Feng explained the danger. Willie possessed 2 skills. Killing Feast ignored hatred and attacked whichever nearby player it chose, so Blackie and Lonely Snow had to watch their positioning. Death Claws demanded a different answer. Cola must create distance, and Lonely Snow must interrupt on command. There was one more rule. Willie was intelligent, so they could not repeat the same attack pattern. Then Shi Feng ended the explanation. Blackie quietly asked if that was truly everything. The others shared his fear. They were level 1 novices entering hell mode, and the expert's plan sounded impossibly simple. Shi Feng told them to relax. He would give the necessary orders when each danger arrived. Burying novices beneath every possible detail would not help them react. Trusting his command, Cola advanced with his shield ready. Willie answered with terrifying speed, exploding across the grassland before the tank could establish a rhythm. Steel claws crashed into Cola's shield. 3 brilliant lines of sparks burst outward, and 3 gouges remained in the metal. Even through the block, the rushing force drove Cola backward 5 or 6 steps. When he finally steadied himself, 103 damage had already vanished from his health. Cola never found time to answer. Willie struck again and hurled him away with his shield, dealing another 105 damage. Only then did Drowsy Sloth's heal arrive, restoring 43 HP, almost nothing beside the punishment. Without both bronze pieces and a successful block, those 2 claws would have killed him. Shi Feng had expected the crisis. Lonely Snow, charge, Blackie evil whip. Lonely Snow reacted first, slamming into Willie and intercepting the next attack before it could finish Cola. Yet his own blow dealt only 11 damage. He stared at the number in disbelief. Willie had 6,000 HP. Like he finished the spell Shi Feng had ordered. 5 pitch-black thorns erupted around Willie and locked its legs in place. Shi Feng was already moving. He circled behind the towering night rabbit and drove the abyssal blade across its neck with double chop. Damage pulled Willie's hatred straight onto Shi Feng. He slipped 5 yards away, then retreated in measured steps while its steel claws passed close enough to toss his hair. He ordered the ranged players to fire and told Cola to reclaim the boss once fully healed. The others attacked without hesitation. Spells struck one after another, and lonely snow carved at Willie's rear with whirlwind slash, yet none of their hits broke 20 damage. Shi Feng's occasional counters did far more. Under that uneven pressure, Willie finally fell to 90% HP. Willie answered with death claws, whipping both arms into a faster, frenzied rhythm. Shi Feng caught one near hit on the abyssal blade and still lost 130 HP. Then the fully recovered Cola charged back in, chaining Divine Strike into punishment until Willie's hatred finally shifted. Later, Killing Feast ignored the safety of that formation. Willie vanished, appeared at Shi Feng's back, struck, and disappeared again. In only 2 seconds, it attacked 7 times. Even with 30 agility, Shi Feng could barely turn the abyssal blade quickly enough to meet every descending claw. Blocking did not make those blows harmless. 96, 97. Drowsy Sloth's heals answered with 46, 48, then 32, never quite replacing what Willie removed. Shi Feng's 520 HP kept the exchange survivable, but when Killing Feast ended, he had fewer than 100 left. "Get rid of it," Shi Feng shouted. Killing Feast had left Willie weakened, and this was the opening he had endured 7 claws to create. The entire party attacked. Together, they stripped away the remaining 30% of Willie's HP. The huge night rabbit collapsed and dropped 4 items. Shi Feng did not reach for the drops. He checked everyone instead. Drowsy Sloth had less than 20% MP, and the other mages had less than 10. "Everyone, sit down and recover immediately." Though confused by the urgency, the party obeyed and brought out food and drinks. He had not recovered for even 5 seconds when a roar shook the entire deathly forest. Every head snapped toward the trees. A black shadow launched from the forest and landed on the grassland beside Willie's body. It rose into the unmistakable shape of a gigantic werewolf. Outside that same dungeon, more than 10 hours had passed since God's domain opened. The players gathered there were now level 2, and business flourished around their unused loot. Vendors called out level 0 common equipment and small HP potions capable of restoring 90 HP instantly. Yet as the crowd grew, the number of parties entering kept shrinking. Those who went in unprepared returned through death with their confidence corrected. They stayed outside, compared reports with experienced parties, and refined possible strategies, sometimes smiling as another unaware group marched through the gate. Still, parties entered in wave after wave, and wave after wave died inside. Every failure added another witness, another report, and another reason to hesitate. Before long, Deathly Forest had become the sore point of every player in Red Leaf Town, while Shi Feng's depleted party stood deeper within, facing its second boss. Deathly Forest had given nearly every player the same impression. It was horrifying. At its crowded resurrection graveyard, 6 streaks of white light appeared together. Gentle Snow's entire party had returned the quickest way possible, through death. Zhao Yuuru stamped her foot and declared the dungeon impossible. They would be better off grinding monsters or doing quests. Her delicate, furious display drew plenty of attention from the crowd, but Gentle Snow merely shook her head. Gentle Snow refused to discard their gains. The forest was enormous and split into countless paths, but she suspected only a few actually reached the boss. The rest were traps, steering parties into repeated night rabbit ambushes. What they needed was information and a map. The evidence supported her. Hidden arrows had repeatedly singled out their cleric Zio Yuer, and only her sharp dodging delayed disaster. Deeper in, every fight seemed to draw more night rabbits until the party could no longer bear the numbers. A correct route might have changed everything. Deeper inside, Shi Feng was already fighting the nightmare those failed parties could not reach. Hell Mode Werewolf felt possessed 3 absolute skills. The first was Death Stare, a gaze that crushed attack and movement speed, and could freeze anyone whose will was too weak. Only Shi Feng had 30 agility. Combined with 3 activated hidden basic skills, it gave him enough resistance to keep moving. So he held Felt alone while Drowsy Sloth healed through casting speed cut in half. The other melee fighters could not even react safely enough to help. That left the ranged players to chip away from safety, and their damage was miserable. Even Blackie's dark arrow produced only 24 damage, then Felt drew a sudden breath. Shi Feng recognized the roar before it began and shouted one command. Lonely, interrupt it. Only Snow had been waiting for exactly that tell. His charge stunned Felt for 1 second, and he withdrew before the boss recovered. Shi Feng consumed the opening with Thundering Flash, Double Chop, and Chop. Blood left Felt's mouth as 500 damage tore its HP down to 78%. Felt answered with a sky of claw after images. Yet Shi Feng moved through them as though dancing, using the abyssal blade only against strikes he could not evade. His senses sharpened, his thoughts narrowed to perfect focus. Every fragment of his body's potential entered the exchange. That state was not free. It exhausted mind and body, and an average player could not have maintained it at all. Shi Feng's past experience let him endure as claws and swords scattered dazzling sparks, but both combatants kept losing HP. Only Drowsy Sloth's timely heals kept him standing. Under Shi Feng's command, the fight became a cycle. Lonely snow interrupted each vulnerable roar. Cola stepped in whenever Shi Feng neared danger. Blackie's evil whip restrained Felt long enough to reset the rhythm. With Drowsy Sloth healing throughout, Felt's HP fell through 70%, 60%, and toward 30%. The instant Felt neared 30%, Shi Feng changed the plan. Straight line facing the boss quickly. At this threshold, Hell's roar could no longer be interrupted. They would have to endure it head-on. No one hesitated. The party aligned behind Shi Feng and held exactly 30 yards from Felt. Werewolf Felt's HP crossed 30% and the warning became real. Its fur drained to snow white. Blood streamed from both eyes while its chest swelled like a grotesque bellows. The uninterruptible Hell's roar was coming. Shi Feng triggered gravity liberation and surged ahead of everyone. Cola, use protection blessing on me? He did not scatter the party or gamble on separate defenses. He placed his own body at the head of the line. Protection blessing would have Shi Feng's incoming damage for 6 seconds, but its 5-minute cooldown made this the only window. Shi Feng had even cleared unnecessary night rabbits because Hell mode commonly dropped it. That earlier delay had been preparation, not waste. At the rear, Drowsy Sloth chained Recover and Life Prayer until Shi Feng returned to full HP. Shi Feng raised the abyssal blade across his chest. Prepare for a battering attack. Do not leave my back. Nobody moved, though cold sweat covered them. Hell's roar erupted as wave after wave of dark gray force. Shi Feng's doppelganger stood in the path first. One passage tore 300 HP from the copy, while only 30 damage reached Shi Feng and 20 reached each ally behind him. Third wave erased the doppelganger. Now Shi Feng took 100 damage at a time. The numbers kept appearing, 100, 100, 100, until his HP collapsed to just 90. Yet he still held his ground between Felt and everyone else. The last wave would have killed him. Shi Feng activated parry at the final instant. The impact drove him one heavy step backward but dealt no damage. Because he stopped it at the front, the allies behind him were untouched by that final blow. Party had survived, but no one's HP exceeded half. Drowsy Sloth's Recover reached Shi Feng first, raising him from 90 to 140. Life Payment followed for another 130 HP. In moments, the one person capable of holding Felt was safely above half again. Blackie wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He had truly thought they were finished. If Shi Feng died, no one else could hold Felt for long. The others understood the same thing and stared at Shi Feng like the real monster on this battlefield. Shi Feng never stopped watching Felt's HP. At 10%, the third major move arrived, Death Berserk. Its attack speed and attack power doubled, its movement speed rose by 40%, and every bonus would remain until the boss died. Felt's snow-white fur flooded blood red. With crimson eyes and exposed fangs, it looked like a blood fiend. The danger was so palpable that every party member recoiled one step. Surviving the roar had not made the fight safe. It had only opened the final phase. Shi Feng struck with another double chop and pushed bleeding to 5 layers. Then he turned and ran. Below level 5, no one could block this version of Felt, not even Shi Feng with a magic weapon. The only answer was to kite it while the bleeding and ranged attacks ground it down. When Shi Feng crossed 10 yards, Felt's thick thighs doubled in size. One stomp launched it after him like an arrow. The large rock was close, but Felt was faster. Shi Feng knew he would not reach it in time, so at the final moment he cut 90 degrees sideways. Shi Feng's last-second turn worked. Felt never corrected its course. The blood-red werewolf slammed straight into the large rock and pulverized it, hurling head-sized fragments more than 10 yards. Even Cola trembled. One direct swipe from those claws would reduce him to paste. Shi Feng widened the gap beyond 20 yards while the ranged attacks kept shaving away Felt's HP. Whenever the boss nearly caught him, Lonely Snow charged in and followed with Bone Crusher. During that cooldown, Blackie's evil whip took over, with Shi Feng's abyssal bind completing the cycle. 7% became 6, then 5, then 3. At 1%, Shi Feng stopped running and turned on Felt. Wind Blade accelerated him into range. Thundering Flash, Chop, and Double Chop tore across the werewolf's chest, and his final sword stroke emptied its last sliver of HP. System confirmed what they had achieved. This was the first clear of a Hell mode dungeon. Both rewards and loot increased by 100%. Then came the Deathly Forest clear reward, 8,000 EXP for every party member, enough to carry the exhausted group into level 2. Felt exploded into more than 10 drops. One item seized Shi Feng's attention immediately, the Crimson Blade. The sword was the color of fresh blood, glowing a muted red. Faint red liquid slipped from its edges, and the entire weapon radiated a dense killing aura. Shi Feng knew just how miserable the Crimson Blade's drop rate was, which made this first clear appearance extraordinary. At level 5, he could wield the Abyssal Blade in his main hand and the Crimson Blade in his offhand. Among players of that level, his attack power would be unmatched. Blackie finally burst out, urging Brother Feng to pick everything up before he died of anxiety. The others demanded at least a look. The shining pile had almost made them forget their joy at reaching level 2, but for all their impatience, not one person stepped forward to snatch anything. A restraint mattered more than they knew. In Shi Feng's previous life, temporary teammates had rushed a fallen boss, stolen everything they could, and vanished. This time, he had deliberately left pickup unrestricted as a test. The party understood that Shi Feng, not any single drop, was the real treasure. They passed. Once the collection was complete, Shi Feng displayed the equipment attributes for everyone. There were 15 pieces in all. The Crimson Blade as the sole secret silver item, 5 pieces of mysterious iron equipment, and 9 pieces of top-quality bronze equipment, far superior to ordinary elite drops. Hell Mode alone could drop mysterious iron equipment, and Blackie's luck had delivered twice. 2 of the 5 pieces were parts of the Dark Color set, the premier Cursomancer set below level 5. It required head, chest, legs, shoes, and arm guards. This haul contained the chest and shoes, and Blackie could not stop smiling. The moment distribution resumed, Blackie equipped his 2 Dark Color pieces. Ash-gray fur robes settled over him, matched by glistening pitch-black boots. He proudly begged Shi Feng to return to Hell Mode every day until he could complete the entire set. The improvement justified every boast. Blackie's magic attack rose to 66. His level 3 Dark Arrow could already erase more than half a level 1 Shield Warrior's health. With all 5 set pieces, he expected 1 arrow to finish the same target. Black luster drew openly envious stares. After the terror of Hell Mode, its rewards now seemed irresistible. Instead of dreading another descent, the entire party found themselves hoping Shi Feng would bring them back for more. 3 mysterious iron set pieces remained, 1 each for Guardian Knight, Shield Warrior, and Elementalist. Kola was the only compatible member, so Shi Feng handed him the Guardian Knight piece and stored the other 2 rather than misassigning them. Bronze rewards spread through the party. Kola gained an exceptional level 2 shield, and Lonely Snow a greatsword of the same quality. Drowsy Sloth and Gluttonous Mouse each received 1 piece. Shi Feng replaced several of his own items with 3 swordsman pieces and stored the leftovers. 1 reward resisted Shi Feng's experience, the notebook. He had cleared Hell Mode dozens of times in his previous life and had never seen it, nor heard of another guild obtaining one. That made a first kill restriction likely, and its unreadable contents important. Guesswork could not reveal what the notebook contained. Shi Feng would need the library to translate it. He stored that investigation for later, just as Blackie, eager to try his new skill, asked what they would do next. Shi Feng chose Dark Moon Valley. Its quests and monsters offered plenty of ore, exactly what his forging design now demanded in bulk. Better still, Blackie's Hellflame could tear through kobolds and gnomes at several grinding locations Shi Feng already knew. Shi Feng did not assume the others would come. He offered them the choice to follow or pursue quests alone. Kola hugged his new shield and declared that he intended to follow Big Brother Feng from now on. His foolishly happy smile made the answer unmistakable. Drowsy Sloth and Gluttonous Mouse wanted the same chance, but embarrassment kept their heads lowered. Both were still high schoolers, facing an expert they hoped to learn from. They finally asked together. Shi Feng smiled, welcomed them, and watched their clenched hands rise in excitement. No one objected. Shi Feng confirmed that the 6 of them would grind in Dark Moon Valley, then opened the system panel to leave the completed dungeon. Behind them lay the first Hell Mode clear. Ahead waited an entrance crowded with people who knew nothing of it. Outside, players expected the gathered guilds to conquer Deathly Forest. More than 10 guilds were present. Assassin's Alliance was the best known, followed by Heaven's Crown, and even the obscure groups had workshops that hired experts ordinary players could not match. Every guild wanted its name established in Red Leaf Town, and conquering the first dungeon was the perfect advertisement. They had spent heavily on better equipment, medicine, and purchased intelligence about Deathly Forest. With that preparation, confidence came easily. Wordless Summer Night admired the guild team's gorgeous equipment with a pained expression. Waving slowly but surely could only agree. Their own party had wiped before even seeing a boss. In practice, defeated independents like them had merely become scouts who supplied the guilds with hard-earned information. Battle to the End refused to accept that the guild experts were better players. The dungeon was simply too horrifying, he insisted, and its equipment requirement too high. Deep down, he was certain superior gear, not superior skill, was the only reason those experts might succeed where his party failed. With the better-equipped guild teams preparing to move, Wordless Summer Night insisted Waving Slowly's party could have cleared the Deathly Forest with comparable gear. Their own prizes sounded impressive only in his telling. 2 night rabbits killed, plus 1 berserker skill book. Wordless laughed that Shi Feng's so-called noob party had probably fled in shame. Lonely Snow was the real pity, he said. Had Lonely remained obedient to waving slowly, this skill book would have been his. Battle to the end eagerly agreed that regret was inevitable. Waving slowly grudgingly admitted that Blackie was an expert and that Lonely Snow had decent skill. Yet pride supplied an easy answer. However capable Blackie might be, Shi Feng and the other dead weight would drag him into a party wipe. Waving was quietly delighted by that imagined ending. And just as the guilds moved toward the deathly forest, the teleportation gate changed. Its silvery gray surface plunged into pitch-black darkness, and an indistinct skull appeared within it, roaring. The front ranks recoiled several steps, every prepared advance forgot. The answer stepped out of the darkness. 6 figures materialized before the entrance, every one of them dressed in glorious equipment. Shi Feng led Blackie, Cola, Lonely Snow, Drowsy Sloth, and Gluttonous Mouse safely back into the waiting daylight. Return should have ended every argument. Instead, Waving Slowly's party searched for a safer explanation. Shi Feng's group was alive, but in their minds that could not mean victory. Even the glorious equipment before them failed to break Waving's certainty that this supposed noob had failed. Waving knew the deathly forest's horror firsthand. Once a party entered the forest, he believed there were only 2 outcomes, clear it or wipe. Since Shi Feng had returned alive and a clear was unthinkable, Waving selected the only answer his pride allowed. They had never gone inside. Round Shi Feng, players began laughing so violently that some doubled over. His party was already infamous throughout the deathly forest. A leader surrounded by level 1 beginners had marched straight into hell mode. To the onlookers, no choice could have been more foolish. The crowd decided Shi Feng had entered hell mode only long enough to hide near the threshold. He must have waited for a quiet moment to slip away, they reasoned, only for the gathered guilds to witness his exit. One player called him a coward, another laughed until his stomach hurt. Blackie stared at players nearly rolling on the ground and scratched his head. After everything the party had survived and won, the reaction made no sense to him. He turned to Shi Feng and simply asked what was wrong with these people. A new presence cut through the laughter. Zio Yuer, the cleric from Gentle Snow's party, approached Shi Feng as an intermediary. The crowd first registered a pure maiden speaking to the supposed noob. Then they understood whose request she carried. The impossible part was not that Zio Yuer had approached a noob. She was only the messenger. The invitation came personally from Gentle Snow, the snow goddess herself. In one instant, the laughter around Shi Feng collapsed into stunned silence. Gentle Snow was not merely famous. She was the publicly acknowledged snow goddess of virtual gaming, pursued by countless supposedly perfect men. One wealthy heir had offered 10 million credits for a single meal. He did not receive a meeting, a reply, or even one word. Rejected heir tried to retaliate and possess her. Days later, his self-made father's properties changed hands overnight, leaving the family ruined. Once the cause was discovered, the father nearly beat his son to death. From then on, Gentle Snow seemed not merely admired, but divine and inviolable. That untouchable goddess had actively requested Shi Feng. The laughter died completely. Players who had called him a coward now stared with envy and displeasure, unable to understand what virtue or ability this supposed noob possessed. Shi Feng's public humiliation had reversed into public fascination. Envy rushed in to replace the crowd's laughter. Some players cursed Shi Feng's impossible luck. One self-proclaimed expert, Jade Wintry, even wondered whether Gentle Snow ignored him because he was too handsome. Soon, the crowd found a safer explanation. The goddess merely wanted information about hell mode. Any noob could have received that benefit. Wordless Summer Night pinched his thick cheeks and asked Boss Waving Slowly whether he had heard correctly. Waving Slowly insisted the invitation proved nothing. Shi Feng had simply been lucky enough to give Gentle Snow something to ask about. Battle to the end nodded along. Admitting anything more would mean admitting their supposed noob belonged in a world they could only admire. Everyone expected Shi Feng to agree with a smug smile. Instead, he answered Zio Yuer without hesitation. He was not interested, and he was in a hurry. Then he turned and walked away. Gentle Snow's fame meant nothing beside the work waiting for him, leaving her messenger and the entire entrance frozen behind him. Shi Feng already possessed the forging design. Ore was the missing piece. If he could produce garrison armor before competitors and higher-level equipment eroded its advantage, the profits would be far greater. Every delay cost him value. To him, that shrinking market window mattered more than a conversation with a famous goddess. Gentle Snow did not let the matter end there. She approached with Zhao Yueru beside her, her silvery white plate armor drawing every eye in the deathly forest. The crowd had not imagined she would come in person. Their envy toward Shi Feng sharpened into outright hatred as the untouchable goddess placed herself directly in his path. Gentle Snow assured him that the conversation would be brief. To compensate him, she offered a piece of bronze equipment. At this stage of God's domain, that was no token gesture. The offer told everyone that she valued a few minutes of this supposed noob's time more highly than equipment most players could only dream of owning. While the crowd saw an ordinary face, gentle Snow looked more carefully. Shi Feng's entire bearing was calm and steady. Beneath it lingered a faint murderous aura, not the bluster of a novice, but something honed through countless life-or-death battles. That quiet contradiction confirmed her suspicion. Whatever his visible level suggested, this man was no ordinary player. Zhao Yuru could not believe gentle Snow would spend bronze equipment on him. She declared that Shi Feng was worth gray equipment at best. They had already honored him by requesting a conversation, yet he had walked away instead of rushing over to flatter them. To Zhao Yuru, such indifference could only be an unattractive man's scheme. Shi Feng waved the offer away. He already owned bronze equipment. He did not need charity. He had never intended to flatter Zhao Yuru, and her contempt gave him even less reason to begin. His answer was quiet, but it struck directly at her assumption that a low-level player must be desperate for anything gentle Snow offered. Bronze item was not spare equipment. Gentle Snow's group had earned it only after a difficult fight against a rare elite. To Zhao Yuru, letting that hard-won reward benefit Shi Feng was an absolute waste. But once gentle Snow treated it as payment, Shi Feng would not accept its value while leaving the exchange one-sided. Shi Feng's brows drew together. Even an ordinary man would resent that much ridicule, let alone someone carrying a second lifetime of experience. He addressed gentle Snow properly. Since she had given him bronze equipment, he would reciprocate with a gift of his own. Gentle Snow's eyes flashed. His manners were exact, his pride controlled, and he was more interesting than she had expected. Zhao Yuru turned aside with a seductive, contemptuous smile. What could Shi Feng possibly own that gentle Snow had not already seen? Even luxury cars worth more than 10 million credits failed to impress her. Shi Feng answered without argument. He reached into his bag, withdrew a paper drawing dropped by the dungeon boss, and nonchalantly passed it to gentle Snow. Zhao Yuru stared at the paper in gentle Snow's hand and accused Shi Feng of making fools of them. Snow had given him bronze equipment. He had answered with apparent scrap. Shi Feng's grave reply was simply, no. That calm denial only made Zhao Yuru angrier. Behind him, Blackie and the others broke into a cold sweat. If the goddess took offense, her admirers could kill them without her lifting a hand. Blackie was ready to offer his own bronze staff. Then gentle Snow gladly accepted the paper. Every mouth fell open. Gentle Snow thanked Shi Feng and asked for somewhere quieter to talk. Her faint smile was dazzling enough to linger in memory, and Shi Feng returned it before leading the way. Zhao Yuru protested, bewildered, but Snow only repeated that she truly liked the gift. Scrap was the basic strength potion recipe. For a current level 2 player, its extra 6 strength meant 12 more attack power, a major dungeon advantage. A guild could brew it repeatedly, and demand would never keep pace with supply. Its value surpassed tens of bronze items. Zhao Yuru rejected the comforting thought that Shi Feng might not know its worth. His confidence had made that impossible. Color rose into her cheeks. She had called a rare recipe scrap, and his smile now felt like mockery. Gentle Snow merely teased, "Now you finally know. I told you he wasn't simple." Back at the entrance, players were still stunned that the goddess had taken a supposed noob aside. Wordless Summer Night admitted her courtesy proved Shi Feng was not simple. Waving slowly refused to reconsider. Snow only wanted Hell Mode intelligence, he insisted, and Shi Feng had merely been lucky. Gentle Snow swept her gaze across Shi Feng's party. Their equipment had come from Hell Mode, yet the group included 3 temporary level 1 noobs and only 1 or 2 technically sound players. Such a team could not have entered, survived, and emerged richly equipped without detailed information. And Gentle Snow supplied the missing explanation herself. Shi Feng was not merely a beta tester, but one who had researched the Deathly Forest in detail. The recipe proved he had cleared it. She promised to keep his secret. Shi Feng shrugged and agreed, privately relieved that she had filled every questionable gap for him. Heard she had him understood, Gentle Snow smiled and told him to name his price. Shi Feng was already laughing inwardly. If money was needed, it should come from someone wealthy and first-rate. Ouroboros, an organization that had conquered more than 10 virtual reality games, was exactly the customer he wanted. Gentle Snow waited for his price, but Shi Feng was weighing far more than her present wealth. In the future, Ouroboros would command the 1,000-plus experts of the God-slaying army, unite over 80 million player cities, and grow powerful enough to rival the entire Starmoon Kingdom. That power was precisely why he could not trust her blindly. Gentle Snow could reach information that ordinary players never could. Shi Feng had leaked hints, and especially the potion recipe, to test her. If she turned dangerous, he could deny everything. Instead, her discreet reaction was exactly what he had hoped for. Shi Feng calmly named his price, 20 silver coins. For a small guild, that was an entire fortune. Even a 100-person farming group would need 2 or 3 days to earn it. Zhao Yuru sucked in a breath and nearly sprang from where she stood. Gentle Snow accepted the 20 silvers, but Ouroboros's power was centered in the capital, Starmoon City, not around White River City. She needed 1 day to gather the money. For now, she offered 7 silvers as a deposit and 15 more tomorrow, adding interest for making him wait. Shi Feng knew she was telling the truth and accepted. He immediately mailed her the Deathly Forest map, along with the boss precautions she had purchased. With Gentle Snow's ability, that information should make normal mode easy. The transaction was no promise now, the strategy was in her hands. One glance shook Gentle Snow. The forest held 36 possible paths, and 33 were dead ends. A night ranger roamed for opportunities. The guide even recorded the boss's skills and their timing, exploring all that through deaths and trial runs would cost Ouroboros far more than 20 silvers. Gentle Snow's view of Shi Feng changed again. Someone who could provide this much detail was not simple. Rather than end their business with the guide, she offered him a place in a future 20-man team dungeon, a chance to turn one profitable exchange into an ongoing connection. Zhao Yuuru saw no reason to waste a slot. Shi Feng's beta experience might explain the Deathly Forest, but the 20-man dungeon had opened only after release. It had never existed in the test. To her, he had no hidden knowledge there, and no proven strength worth inviting. Shi Feng ignored the insult and considered the opportunity. Dark Moon Graveyard could drop excellent swordsman equipment, with attributes better than gear from wild bosses. He could not currently assemble 20 players himself. Joining Gentle Snow for one run would cost him little, and open a loot pool he could not otherwise reach. Nodded, but his agreement came with conditions. Gentle Snow had to reserve several places for his companions. Every piece of swordsman equipment and every forging design had to belong to him. He did not soften the demand, even while negotiating with one of the game's most formidable future powers. Zhao Yuuru pouted and demanded to know whether he could be even a little humble. Anyone else would have accepted without asking for equipment at all. Shi Feng had requested priority instead. Yet Gentle Snow found that bluntness interesting. Unlike everyone trying to impress her, he simply said what he wanted. Gentle Snow inspected the party behind Shi Feng. They were novices, but their equipment was consistently good, barely enough to manage the 20-man dungeon. She accepted his terms. They would add each other as friends and stay in contact. Shi Feng left the negotiation with money, a buyer's respect, and a future raid secured. Shi Feng had barely led his party onward through the Deathly Forest entrance when Stabbing Heart hurried over. The Assassin's Alliance officer joked that he had almost failed to recognize Brother Yi Feng. Knowing a great figure like the Snow Goddess was not something Shi Feng could hide anymore. Shi Feng smiled and dismissed it as a chance meeting. Stabbing Heart mistook that understatement for an expert's humility. In his eyes, Shi Feng's strength made him fully worthy of Gentle Snow's friendship. That calm manner only made the assassin more determined to cultivate their own connection. Stabbing Heart invited him to enter the dungeon with the Assassin's Alliance and sweetened the offer. Shi Feng could choose any equipment he wanted. Shi Feng thanked him but declined. He still had business elsewhere. Perhaps another time. Even exceptional loot priority was not enough to divert him from his plan. Stabbing Heart had spoken loudly enough for the whole entrance to hear. First, the Snow Goddess had summoned the supposed novice. Now a famous Assassin's Alliance officer offered him free choice of loot, and Shi Feng turned him down. The crowd's verdict reversed at once. Nobody could honestly call him a noob now. That reversal brought Waving slowly and his companions hurrying back. Gone was their former arrogance. Smiling broadly, Waving slowly apologized for their ignorance and offered 1 silver coin as proof of sincerity. Wordless Summer, Night, and Battle to the end joined in repeatedly. What they really wanted was simple, an expert to carry them. Shi Feng did not care enough about their old behavior to hold a grudge, but carrying them was another matter. He told them to leave if they had nothing else to say. He had business to handle and no time to waste. Then he turned away without taking the silver. Lonely Snow only shook his head. Watching Lonely Snow leave beside Shi Feng, Wordless Summer Night's apology curdled into a sour boast. He would become an expert too someday. Yet Waving slowly understood what the others did not. Their earlier choice had already divided their paths. Lonely Snow was moving into a world they could no longer reach. Shi Feng's party did not pause after leaving the Deathly Forest. They rushed straight for Dark Moon Valley. Most players had only reached level 2 and still hunted safer prey or raided the dungeon behind them. Dark Moon Valley was a level 4 region. At this stage, only a handful of experts willingly leveled there. Level 4 kobolds were scattered across the valley. The party members seeing the place for the first time grew tense, their breathing quickening. Blackie did not flinch. He had already killed hundreds of these creatures beside Shi Feng. Calmly following his friend deeper, he looked less like a novice and more like the group's veteran. The elite parties near the outskirts stared as the newcomers kept going. Deeper in, kobolds no longer appeared in manageable pairs. 4 or 5 could attack at once, and groups of 10 were possible toward the center. To the observers, entering that density for ordinary grinding was not courage. It was an unnecessary death. But the observers had underestimated Shi Feng's ambition. He was not merely entering the deeper valley. He was heading for its core. He knew a grinding location there where monsters were plentiful and respawned quickly. Better still, the ore drop rate was high. What looked like madness was a carefully chosen engine for levels and resources. Deeper Shi Feng led the party, the less reckless his route became. In Dark Moon Valley, he knew where every monster gathered, how many would appear, and when they would return. He had spent countless hours mastering those details in his previous life, when every improvement was meant to raise his position inside Shadow. Life had turned that sacrifice around. Knowledge once gathered for Shadow now belonged entirely to Shi Feng. It would level his own companions faster and secure a steady supply of ore for his plans. The years he had spent serving someone else's future had become capital for the future he intended to build himself. Groups of 4 or 5 level 4 kobolds kept appearing along the Broken Rock path. Earlier, that density had looked suicidal to the watching elite parties. Here, it barely slowed Shi Feng's team. Kola planted his shield and held 4 enemies at once while the others settled naturally into formation. Drowsy Sloth kept Kola above 80% health with little effort. If one kobold slipped around the shield, Lonely Snow drove it straight back. Shi Feng's ordinary sword strikes dealt more than 100 damage, and Blackie's dark arrows hit for 88. Moments later, all 5 kobolds were down. Shi Feng collected the dropped ore and stone without ceremony, then kept moving. More than an hour later, the path opened before a mountain hundreds of meters high. Kobolds had vanished from its base. In their place, wandering gnomes chipped at the rock with small shovels, crowding the site Shi Feng had come to exploit. Fighting that population one enemy at a time would waste the site. Shi Feng chose a different answer. If they could not overpower the whole crowd, he would outrun it. His agility had reached 30, and his bronze shoes pushed his movement speed at least 4 points beyond the wandering gnomes. That advantage made Blackie's hell flame several times more efficient than individual kills. Shi Feng explained the sequence carefully. He would gather and compress the horde. Blackie had to release the area spell at the best possible moment. Kola, Lonely Snow, Drowsy Sloth, and the remaining member would finish whatever survived with low health. Once everyone was positioned, Shi Feng grabbed a handful of stones and rushed a nearby gnome overseer. At 20 yards, the creature began yelling. Its alarm drew the wandering gnomes around it. Shi Feng waited inside the danger zone, slipped past the overseer's whip, and let the crowd grow to roughly 30. With 30 monsters committed, Shi Feng turned and struck another overseer with a thrown stone. Its bellow pulled more than 20 additional gnomes into pursuit. The separate packs fused behind him until more than 60 monsters thundered over the mountain ground. Even then, Shi Feng was not satisfied. He circled the mountain for 5 full minutes, triggering group after group. Soon, hundreds of wandering gnomes and more than 10 overseers chased him with everything they had. Shi Feng remained 30% faster. With veteran technique and precise control of his body, he bent the enormous horde into the path he wanted. At last, Shi Feng drove the packed pursuit toward the chosen ground. Blackie watched the distance collapse, staff ready but spell withheld. One early cast would waste the pull. One late cast would bury Shi Feng beneath it. Shi Feng held the line for one more heartbeat, then called, "Blackie, get ready to cast." Blackie's hell flame erupted across the concentrated mob. The strategy's strength was not merely the spell, but the hundreds of targets Shi Feng had forced into its reach. As the area attack tore through the formation, the rest of the party moved exactly as briefed, eliminating the weakened survivors instead of letting the horde scatter. Cleared field looked like the end of an impossible battle. Shi Feng only laughed. This is only the beginning. They will still respawn in a moment. The victory was not a one-time trick. The mountain could become a repeating engine for experience and ore. Before the monsters returned, he ordered everyone to gather the drops. Even with 6 people working, the loot from hundreds of gnomes took time to collect. They were still bent over the harvest when heavy machinery entered the field. A crimson-faced gnome sat inside a gigantic robot, glaring at the party responsible for the slaughter. Then the machine charged with unparalleled rage. Shi Feng recognized it at once. Not good, it's the hazard gnome, everyone spread out. No one questioned him. The sight of the giant robot was warning enough. All 6 abandoned the loot and ran for the forest without hesitation. Shi Feng fled with them. This was not an enemy he intended to meet while the party stood clustered. Danger justified every step of that retreat. The hazard gnome was a level 5 special elite with 1600 HP, and at its first appearance it was stronger than even the berserk chieftain the party had survived. Its chance of spawning after a gnome clear was tiny, yet when it did appear, a player's nightmare had begun. Hazard gnome's small stature meant nothing. God's domain even had a warning about it. Never look down on a gnome, because an enraged one could extinguish your life in an instant. Shi Feng knew that warning was no exaggeration. In his previous life, Shi Feng had seen one appear after an elite ore-grinding party killed a group of gnomes. All 20 players rushed the unexpected special elite, excited by the rare encounter. Their confidence lasted only until the fight began. The entire party was destroyed. Numbers were grotesque for this stage of the game. The hazard gnome had 1600 HP and defense that erased 80% of incoming damage. Even a level 4 berserker's axe had dealt only 2 points. Its bullets, meanwhile, could send an entire party back to the city. The present hazard gnome had no intention of letting them go. Rockets ignited across the machine's back, and the steel giant, more than 3 meters tall, surged after them. What had looked like a lumbering suit of armor became a high-speed hunting machine. Lackey twisted around mid-stride and landed a dark arrow. It dealt only 4 damage. He stared at the number in disgust and complained that without the robot's protection, he could kill the gnome in one shot. Shi Feng noticed something more useful. Lackey could now hit a moving target while running. Shi Feng told him not to chase damage yet. Run, watch the bullets, and reach 1,200 yards from the mountain. Beyond that boundary, the hazard gnome would return. Fighting it head-on during the chase was foolish. First, they needed distance, cover, and control. Yet Shi Feng was not satisfied with merely surviving. In the future, he remembered, no player had ever killed a hazard gnome. If his party could become the first, the drop might be extraordinary. The retreat had bought them a chance to stop reacting and attack on his terms. Before the gnome could reach Blackie, Lonely Snow struck first. Charge forced a momentary fainted state, and Whirlwind Slash scraped away 3 HP. Cola used that instant perfectly. Divine Strike, then Punishment. The blows dealt only 3 and 2 damage, but their added hatred locked the gnome onto him. Machine extended an electric saw from its right arm and brought it down. Cola caught the first strike on his shield, yet the impact hurled him back 3 steps and tore away 147 HP. When the saw came again, he abandoned the block, rolled sideways, and avoided it completely. Drowsy Sloth cast twice in rapid succession and restored nearly 100 HP. Lonely Snow, realizing one direct saw strike could kill him, retreated beyond 10 yards. Cola kept giving ground under the machine's furious attacks, but his health continued falling. Even Drowsy Sloth could not heal fast enough forever. Shi Feng slipped behind the machine and chained Thundering Flash, Double Chop, and Chop. His occasional critical hit dealt 16 damage, tiny against 1,600 HP, yet enormous beside everyone else's numbers. The hazard gnome merely looked at him with contempt and kept sawing at Cola. When the gunfire turned on Shi Feng, his doppelganger appeared directly in its path. The duplicate's blade knocked aside bullet after bullet. That sacrifice bought the real Shi Feng just enough time to trigger gravity liberation and leap into a treetop. The doppelganger was shredded, but Shi Feng escaped the killing zone. Gnome emptied its cartridge, changed magazines, and rushed after Shi Feng again. Gravity liberation made him difficult to track, and every tree became cover from the next volley. While he barely dodged the bullets, the others attacked without pause. Blackie cast Evil Whip every time it was ready. Health bar fell, 64%, 50, 30, 20, then 10. Victory seemed inevitable. Instead, the hazard gnome suddenly jumped out of its metallic machine. Rocket boots were already fitted to its feet, and the tiny pilot sprinted away at astonishing speed. Blackie could only stare. Monsters could actually run away. The others were just as shocked. This gnome understood that it could not win and acted like an intelligent opponent. Cola's shock became anger. After everything that Saw had done to him, he shouted that they could not let it escape and charged after it. Cola was already chasing the wounded hazard gnome when Shi Feng surged past with Wind Blade. He shouted that escape was impossible. The gnome merely gave him a mocking look, pressed a button at its waist, and sent 2 streams of crimson fire roaring from the rocket boots. Party saw the trap at once. Their mages were more than 40 yards away. Lonely Snow was over 30 yards out, and Charge could not stun a target floating in midair. Shi Feng was closest at 15 yards, but he had no ranged attack. By the time he arrived, the gnome would be 20 yards overhead. Shi Feng refused to let such an intelligent enemy leave. He raised the abyssal blade and invoked 9 dragon slash. Black mist swallowed the sword. Then 9 streaks tore upward, taking phantom form around the ascending gnome and giving Shi Feng one last chance to finish the 10% HP monster. Arcus answered with explosives. A chain of blasts scattered the abyssal blade's phantoms before they could renew their attack. In that opening, the rocket boots carried him more than 30 yards away. The phantoms reached the edge of their permitted range and stopped. Shi Feng could do nothing but watch. Blackie cursed the monster's escapability as if it were a game-breaking bug. Cola ground his teeth and hammered a nearby tree with his fists. Everyone had fought for the reward of an elite kill, only to see their prize grow wings. Blackie still saw hope. The boots looked slow, and their fuel had to run out eventually. Shi Feng told them to forget it and return to grinding gnomes. He knew those rocket boots as one of God's domain's godly escape tools. Their present pace was only the startup phase. In another moment, the speed would surge beyond pursuit. Right on cue, the crimson flames intensified, and Arcus vanished from sight. Blackie warned the empty sky that Arcus would not escape a second time. Beside him, Shi Feng's regret condensed into killing intent. Years in God's domain had honed that pressure. A future veteran like Tyrant Bear Cola might have dismissed it, but the present party could barely endure it. Blackie carefully asked if Brother Feng was all right. Shi Feng finally remembered the gnome's name, Arcus Maddox. In the future, Arcus would become a famous Grandmaster engineer and shock the nation by creating the Sky Fortress Twin Snake Ring. 3 years later, he would establish the Gnome Empire, and the vast update known as Emergence of the New World would begin. Twin Snake Ring would later draw expeditions from countless super guilds. Every one of them would be annihilated, with Arcus responsible for the disaster. Yet Shi Feng had stood beside that future calamity without recognizing him. He had possessed a chance to kill a history-changing figure, and he had just watched that chance fly away. Shi Feng forced the killing intent back down and reassured Blackie with a smile. Then the previously quiet gluttonous mouse called from the grass. He had found a small metallic box beneath Arcus's escape path. Shi Feng accepted it, recognized Arcus Maddox's carved inscription, and opened it. His anger vanished into sudden laughter. Their fight had produced a reward after all. Shi Feng's laughter told the party everything. Whatever lay inside Arcus Maddox's box was far beyond common loot. Yet not one companion reached for it or wondered how to divide it. They had made Shi Feng their idol. Helping him claim such a prize was reward enough. Shi Feng put the box away and made a swift decision. The others would remain in Dark Moon Valley and grind until every member reached level 4. Then they were to contact him. They disliked being left behind, but the promise of another plan waiting at level 4 turned reluctance into anticipation. Division of labor was efficient. Blackie's area attack could erase 7 or 8 gnomes at once, letting the party level 2 or 3 times faster than ordinary groups. While they built strength in the valley, Shi Feng carried the box away to advance the first step of his larger plan in God's domain. Once clear of Dark Moon Valley, Shi Feng activated gravity liberation and tore towards Scarlet Lake like a gale. Players along the road saw only a blur. They assumed an assassin had passed them, until one spotted the sword at his waist. A swordsman moving at that speed left the entire roadside staring. From high ground, Shi Feng surveyed Scarlet Lake. Level 10 little fishmen patrolled the shores in thickening groups with their nest concentrated near the center. Water elementals filled the lake itself. The closer one moved toward the water, the denser the defenses became. This was not a normal leveling ground. Fishmen were dangerous for more than their numbers. Their curse stole a player's attributes and added that strength to their own. Every extra moment of battle made them harder to kill. Combined with the dense monsters, hostile water, and complete lack of quests, the mechanic kept ordinary players far away. Reason for accepting that danger lay inside Arcus Maddox's metallic box. It contained a treasure map, and the marked destination was Scarlet Lake. If Arcus knew what he had dropped, Shi Feng imagined the gnome would rage. The map recorded the hiding place of the Philosopher's Stone. Shi Feng's 10 years in God's domain had taught him the history behind that name. 900 years earlier, alchemy master Molotov had poured everything into creating the stone. Nations went to war for it. More than 10 heroic figures fought over it. Then the artifact vanished, leaving one of the world's great mysteries unsolved. This was no collector's relic. The Philosopher's Stone was a sacred item of alchemy. Arcus's map had placed a treasure capable of shaking God's domain within Shi Feng's reach. That discovery turned the lethal lake from an obstacle to avoid into the first decisive step of his own plan. Shi Feng did not move immediately. He watched for half an hour, tracking every patrol cycle. At last, a pattern emerged. The little fishmen did not remain active forever. They periodically withdrew to rest. More importantly, their patrols clung to the shores and almost never entered the water. Water was their weakness. Once a little fishman entered it, its movement speed fell by 60%. If Shi Feng crossed the exposed shore during their brief rest and reached the lake first, the patrols could not maintain a pursuit. The impossible wall of monsters now had a narrow seam. Reaching the water would only clear the first defense. Water elementals guarded the route below. Shi Feng planned to send Phantom Kill's doppelganger away from his true path and draw them after it. While the elementals chased the decoy, he would swim beneath the fishman's nest and enter the cavern hidden below. There was no room for sloppy execution. One mistake meant death. Shi Feng could recover lost experience faster than anyone because of his reincarnated knowledge, so experience itself was not the worst cost. Death would return him to town. Traveling all the way back to Scarlet Lake would waste time he could not spare. 10 seconds remained. Shi Feng followed the patrol with his eyes and counted each one down. The fishmen checked the shore, found nothing unusual, and finally turned toward a small wooden hut. One after another, they disappeared inside to rest. The ground beside Scarlet Lake was empty. Shi Feng's opening had arrived. Shore was empty, and Shi Feng exploded from cover with everything he had. The opening lasted only seconds. 30 yards from Scarlet Lake, another fishman patrol spotted him and raised the alarm. 4 level 10 little fishmen charged with short swords, closing far faster than he could run. Shi Feng could not beat 4 level 10 monsters, and he could not outrun them. He turned at the last instant. Abyssal Bind locked one fishman in place. Parry caught another blade. Instead of resisting the impact, Shi Feng rode its force and flew more than 3 yards toward the lake. Shi Feng activated gravity liberation and landed on the lake instead of sinking. Walking on water normally demanded 80 agility. He had only a little over 30, but the ring of gravity made his body nearly weightless. That combination was enough. He raced across the surface at full speed while all 4 fishmen splashed into the water behind him. Near the fishman nest, Shi Feng dove into Scarlet Lake and found the cavern below. A dense ring of water elementals circled its entrance. He released his Phantom Kill doppelganger and sent the copy away as bait. The guardians surged after it, opening a path, and Shi Feng immediately swam for the cavern. Diversion became a disaster. Racing water elementals threw up waves as tall as a person, smashing through the fishermen's wooden huts. Hundreds of armed little fishmen poured from the damaged nest and dove toward the cavern. Shi Feng looked back in shock. The treasure did not have one defensive layer. It had two, and both were now chasing him. The cavern offered one thread of hope, but Shi Feng was painfully slow underwater. A transformed druid would gain 50% movement speed here. His own speed was reduced by 50%. 50 yards remained. Then 42, 28, 20, 10. The water elementals moved as if they were flying, devouring the distance behind him. At 5 yards, a gigantic icy fist swung for Shi Feng's head. One hit would inflict freezing, slow him further, and let the swarm cling to him until death. He spun underwater and raised his weapon into parry. The blow drove him backward with tremendous force, and that was exactly the direction he needed to go. Shi Feng made it inside, but safety was an illusion. Within the immense cavern stood Floyd, the ghost of a brave one. In God's domain, brave ones ranked beneath only heroes in strength. Their standing exceeded a marquis and yielded only to a duke. Death had not made Floyd harmless. It had made him a great lord. Even 100 elite players would not be enough to approach this fight casually. Shi Feng guessed that Floyd was the site's true guardian. The little fishmen and water elementals were only guard dogs by comparison. With both swarms still behind him, Shi Feng did not linger. He searched the cavern for the route deeper inside. The cavern was enormous, and a flight of stairs descended straight into its depths. That route ought to lead to the Philosopher's Stone. Shi Feng ran for it. Before he reached the first step, a sea of water elementals and little fishmen burst into the cavern behind him, driven by an undying grudge. Floyd's gaze erupted with rage, not at Shi Feng, but at the invading lower lifeforms. He condemned them for sullying the divine place and promised divine punishment. Then the great lord reached over his back and drew a dark golden greatsword. Evil pressure rolled from the blade, so dominant that the weapon seemed to claim mastery over the world. Floyd raised the dark golden greatsword, and the air itself grew heavy. With a thunderous bellow, the ghostly brave one swung. A violent wind and a single sword flash tore through the cavern entrance. Every water elemental and little fishman turned to ash. The same blow crushed the cavern entrance into a mountain of rubble. The creatures that had nearly overwhelmed Shi Feng had not even qualified to serve as Floyd's guard dogs. Cold sweat gathered on Shi Feng's forehead. He had badly underestimated a brave one. That single attack could erase 100 level 30 elite players, and even 300 might only have a fighting chance. Fortunately, Floyd had spared the human in front of him. There was no retreat. Not even an earthworm could squeeze through that rubble. Shi Feng steadied himself and chose the only path left, downward into the unknown stairwell beneath Floyd's vicious domain. Stairs spiraled deeper through rocky walls enchanted with light magic. The whole passage glowed, yet seemed to have no end. No enemies appeared. After half an hour of uninterrupted descent, Shi Feng finally reached a vast open hall. The chamber was as large as a football field. Gold and jade covered the shrine, while illustrations and ancient text crowded both walls. At its deepest point stood an altar, a pure gold treasure chest, and two silent statues guarding either side. The chest held the prize Shi Feng had risked everything to obtain, the Philosopher's Stone. Its description named it a sacred item of alchemy, an artifact once capable of turning stone into gold, reviving the dead, and performing still more unfathomable feats. But this was only a damaged fragment. The sword Emperor Knight had broken the stone into 5 pieces, leaving this one with less than a tenth of its full strength. For now, it offered only 2 functions: alchemy conversion and elemental refinement. Shi Feng was more than satisfied. The chest held 2 more prizes, an instantaneous movement scroll and a level 10 fine gold golden greatsword. Apart from magic weapons, that sword was the best a level 10 player could wield, enough to dominate anyone at the same level. And both statues shook. Red light ignited in their eyes, and their attention locked onto Shi Feng. The guardians moved to strike. He did not waste a heartbeat deciding whether any treasure was worth dying for. Golden magical seals wrapped around Shi Feng, but the scroll required 3 full seconds to cast. It was one of only a few such scrolls in all of God's domain. Still, losing it was cheaper than dying here. A guardian's blade descended, and Shi Feng vanished just before it struck. Shi Feng escaped, but his success did not remain quiet. A system announcement spread through Red Leaf Town and the settlements around Scarlet River. An unknown player had activated a storyline quest. Every player immediately wondered what kind of reward could justify such a rare announcement. Some players immediately imagined killing the achiever and stealing the reward, but the announcement had hidden Shi Feng's name. The large guilds saw a different prize. Guild reputation could advance a guild to level 2 and unlock benefits before its rivals. Same calculation spread through every surrounding town. Large guilds began planning crusades against the little fishmen, each desperate to claim the reputation advantage first. Without revealing himself, Shi Feng had redirected the ambitions of an entire region. Meanwhile, the cause of the uproar sat quietly inside Red Leaf Town's auction house. Its market reached hundreds of towns and small cities under White River City, though every sale lost 5% to handling fees. For Shi Feng, that reach and the anonymity it offered made it the perfect next move. Safe inside Red Leaf Town's auction house, Shi Feng considered his next risk. A public stall would expose both his wealth and his identity, perhaps even drawing Flaming Tiger back onto him. Here, he could sell anonymously and make wealthy buyers from hundreds of towns compete. He began with equipment the market could actually absorb, one mysterious iron plate armor at a base price of 25 silvers. Then came 5 bronze pieces, the plate armor starting at 3 silvers and each remaining item at 2. Level 10 fine gold golden greatsword was different. It was worth at least 2 gold, 200 silvers. At a time when even 1 silver felt precious, listing it would not create a bidding war. It would only expose a treasure nobody could afford. His next problem was capacity. The default bag held 100 slots, but a player could equip 7 bags in all. Shi Feng bought 6 of the largest available, 25 slots each, 40 coppers apiece. The full expansion cost him 240 coppers. Outside, Shi Feng opened a stall, but not to sell equipment. His real target was raw material. Garrison armor consumed magic essence, copper ore, and bronze ore. The ores were scarce, and the large guilds were already buying every supply they could find. Before acquiring the Philosopher's Stone, Shi Feng would have mined the ore himself. Now, elemental refinement could extract metal from cheap stone, with even rare ore possible. Instead of grinding, he could buy what everyone else discarded. Tens of thousands of players had become his unwitting laborers. Response was immediate. Players crowded around him, afraid his new bags would fill first. One offered 6 stacks of magic essence, another held out 3 stacks of stone. Shi Feng gave them the answer they wanted. He would take everything, just trade it over. Stacks poured into his inventory, 3 here, 5 there, until Shi Feng held 60 stacks of magic essence and 85 stacks of stone. The investment consumed almost everything he had. His expanded bags were full, and fewer than 10 coppers remained in his pocket. More sellers were still waiting, but Shi Feng could buy no further. He apologized, announced that he was full, and packed away the stall. With his capital transformed into materials, he left the disappointed crowd and headed for the Forging Association to test the plan. Inside the locked room, Shi Feng emptied 1 stack of stone onto the round table. A single stack meant 100 pieces. They buried the tabletop and spilled across the floor, turning 1 inventory slot into a very physical mountain of chances. Shi Feng picked up 1 piece and smiled. Time to discover what his prize could really do. Only then did he produce the Crimson Philosopher's Stone. If anyone saw such an artifact, the consequences would be immense, which was precisely why he had rented a room no one could enter uninvited. System asked whether he wished to use elemental refinement. Shi Feng chose yes without hesitation. A faint red glow spread from the Philosopher's Stone, and mysterious power flowed into the ordinary rock. His entire investment now waited on what emerged next. The Philosopher's Stone finished channeling its power with a blunt pop. Shi Feng's fist-sized test stone did not reveal precious metal. It collapsed into yellow sand and scattered across the table. The first use of elemental refinement was a failure. Shi Feng calmly selected another stone. The failure did not disprove the artifact. Elemental refinement could only extract metal element that was already present. A stone containing none would naturally become sand. The question was not whether failures occurred, but whether the successes paid for them. The economics justified his patience. 100 ordinary stones sold for only 10 copper coins. 100 pieces of copper ore could fetch 200, and guilds would still fight to buy them. Even a modest yield could multiply the value of Shi Feng's cheap stockpile. Then came failure after failure. 10 stones burst into sand without leaving a trace of ore. Shi Feng's calm finally bent into depression. He wondered whether the entire batch had been gathered from a desert. He inhaled slowly. There were still many stones left. Next stone popped and collapsed like the others. But this time, something remained. Amid the yellow grains lay a piece of metal with a purplish-red luster. Copper ore. Shi Feng lifted it, released the breath he had been holding, and immediately began working faster. Pop after pop, the stones on the table became sand. When the batch was finished, Shi Feng counted 23 copper ore and 2 bronze ore. The bronze was rarer still, worth 3 times copper ore to NPCs. The low success rate no longer looked discouraging, it looked profitable. The moment Shi Feng stepped out of the forging room, an auction house notification appeared. His violent bear armor, the mysterious iron plate armor intended for shield warriors, had sold. After fees, 31 silvers and 53 coppers dropped into his bag from that single listing. Second notice reported the dark star boots sold for another 3 silvers and 21 coppers after fees. More successful listings followed. Shi Feng smiled at the cascade. Competition across White River City Sphere had pushed the prices higher than even he expected. Shi Feng now carried more than 50 silver coins while ordinary players celebrated possessing a few dozen coppers. He could have sold his newly refined ore and rushed toward a gold coin. He refused. Copper and bronze were not quick cash. They were the foundation of a much larger forging business. With fresh capital, Shi Feng rented the secure room for another hour and returned to elemental refinement. He processed 45 stacks of stone. His luck improved. The enormous batch produced 10 stacks of copper ore and 2 full stacks of bronze. Added to his earlier results, Shi Feng now owned 17 stacks of copper ore and 3 stacks of bronze ore, enough to keep him forging for a long time. Materials were no longer the immediate bottleneck. The next advantage he needed was a better place to use them. Most adventurers begrudged even the price of a basic forging room. The manager therefore recognized an unusual customer the moment Shi Feng approached, with real spending power. The administrator's service became markedly warmer as Shi Feng requested an intermediate forging room. It was already morning in the real world. Shi Feng still used a virtual gaming helmet, not equipment that could sustain him indefinitely, so he could not remain in God's domain much longer. After weighing the time, he chose 2 hours, enough for a serious forging session before rest. Manager smiled, handed over the key, and named the total, 2 silver coins. Shi Feng placed both shining coins on the table without hesitation. Around him, players who had been complaining about basic room prices fell silent. Those were unmistakably silver coins, not ordinary coppers. An envious elementalist blurted, "A tycoon!" A pretty, flirtatious player winked at Shi Feng and offered to warm Brother Tycoon's bed. The shameless pitch only sharpened the crowd's attention, turning a simple room rental into a public announcement of just how rich Shi Feng had become. Priest sourly called it dirty money and claimed he would become an intermediate forging apprentice first, though even he knew that was impossible. The premium room itself added 3% forging success. With its superior facilities, the real advantage reached at least 5%. To a serious forger, that difference was enormous. The forger, 5% separated heaven from earth. Shi Feng left the envious crowd and its shameless flirtation behind, gripped the intermediate room key, and climbed to the Forging Association's 2nd floor without sparing the young woman another glance. The contrast was immediate. 50 basic rooms crowded the 1st floor, but only 20 intermediate rooms lined the 2nd. NPCs walked the corridor, players did not. Shi Feng had entered a part of the association that ordinary apprentices could not yet afford to use. Inside, the rental finally justified its price. The room was broader and more refined than a basic workshop, with superior facilities arranged around a stone worktable. 2 features seized Shi Feng's attention at once, its hammer and its unnatural forge flame. Shi Feng lifted the silvery white hammer from its iron-woven rest. The interface named it the Bronze Rank 100 Refinement Hammer, Strength 4 required, and a direct 3% increase to forging success. For a production player, that single number was already precious. NPC shops sold only common hammers, which offered no success bonus at all. Stealing this one was equally impossible. Every item belonging to the room was locked inside it. Shi Feng had not bought the tool. He had bought 2 hours of access to an advantage others could not carry away. Forge fire was more extraordinary still. Instead of an ordinary scarlet-yellow blaze, it burned scarlet and green. Its display identified the Tier 1 Scarlet Devil Flame, a mysterious flame of extreme temperature that raised smelted purity and improved the success of forging and potion refinement. Shi Feng remembered the game's 2nd month. In that future, the 3rd-rate Guild Glorious Light discovered the Tier 2 Ice Blue Devil Flame in 100 Ghosts Forest. One production treasure drew lifestyle players to them in waves and abruptly made the guild the tyrant of a small city. Other guilds secretly hunted for mysterious flames, including Shi Feng's former organization, Shadow. Shadow eventually bought the location and acquisition method from Glorious Light's inner circle. It changed nothing. Such flames appeared only once. After the Ice Blue Devil Flame was taken, every latecomer's preparation became wasted effort. This time, Shi Feng knew enough to move first. Securing the Ice Blue Devil Flame would strengthen the guild he intended to build and help push him from apprentice toward a true forger. Yet a unique prize punished haste as readily as delay. He would prepare everything and design a proper plan before acting. Shi Feng took out the garrison armor forging design and selected Learn without hesitation. The system confirmed the result. He now knew how to forge garrison armor. Future treasure could wait. His immediate route to proficiency and profit had just become executable. For an ordinary basic forging apprentice, progress was punishing. Even level 0 common equipment offered no more than a 20% success rate. Worse, a successful item carried only a 40% chance of awarding 1 proficiency point. Failures consumed resources. Successes did not always advance the crafter. Shi Feng did not face an ordinary apprentice's scarcity. The Philosopher's Stone gave him a renewable resource route, and each armor needed only 5 bottles of magic essence, 5 bronze ore, and 20 copper ore total cost. 80 coppers, at least 20 less than comparable bronze equipment. The economics were better than cost alone. Garrison armor possessed strong attributes and was widely welcomed, so Shi Feng would not need to hunt for buyers. Cheap inputs, abundant resources, and ready demand meant every successful piece could advance his proficiency and return a profit. Decisive advantage was the Book of Forging. It added 70% for common equipment and 50% for bronze. The bonuses then stepped down by rank: 30 for mysterious iron, 20 for secret silver, 10 for fine gold, 5 for dark gold, and even 1% for epic equipment. Its power was clearest at the lowest rank. Shi Feng's 20% common equipment baseline became 90 with the book alone. Add the intermediate room and eliminate careless mistakes, and the practical success rate reached 99% or more. Common production had become nearly impossible for him to fail. Garrison armor began at a miserable 5%. The book added 50, the room supplied 3, and the Scarlet Devil Flame pushed the combined chance to 60%. Other forgers would have gone mad for 60% on common equipment. Shi Feng had achieved it on valuable bronze gear. Decision was made. Shi Feng arranged magic essence, bronze ore, and copper ore across the stone table, then placed the immensely precious Book of Forging within reach. He took up the 100 refinement hammer and faced the heated ore. Every advantage was ready. Now he had to execute. 100 refinement hammer came down. Sparks burst across the wide chamber, and every ringing blow landed exactly where Shi Feng intended. He had never trained as a forger in his previous life, but long conversations with a master forger had taught him enough to avoid a novice's cheapest mistakes. More than 100 blows later, sweat ran across his forehead. Shi Feng studied the crimson ore and decided it had reached the right point. One more strike would risk ruining the work. He steadied his breathing, opened its interface, and pressed complete. Red-hot mass changed shape before him. 5 long seconds later, silvery gray armor rested on the table. Its surface looked flawless, but appearances meant nothing. A bad forging could demote bronze equipment to common rank or leave its attributes below standard. Shi Feng could endure a failure, but he had no desire to burn money for nothing. A trace of nerves remained as he checked the item. Then the uncertainty broke. His first garrison armor was a success. He lifted it, tested the silvery gray metal beneath his fingers, and admired its eye-catching design. Satisfaction quickly became arithmetic. Common gear still dominated God's domain. Even elite parties considered 1 or 2 bronze pieces a blessing. Both shield warriors and guardian knights could wear this armor, and a better-equipped main tank meant easier dungeon clears. 4 silver would not frighten serious buyers. Armor carrying defensive power would be even more valuable to an MT. Shi Feng set a hard floor in his mind, no less than 5 silver coins. With the first success behind him, he did not merely repeat the recipe. He reached for 100 refinement steel and turned the next attempt into an experiment. 10 minutes later, the second armor took shape and immediately broke the pattern. The first had been silvery gray. This one was pitch black. Shi Feng held still while identification counted down for 3 seconds, waiting to learn exactly what the 100 refinement steel had changed. System named it Garrison Heavy Armor, level 3 bronze plate requiring 14 strength. It carried 25 defense, 2 strength, 4 endurance, 150 HP, and 40 durability. Then came the premium line, an additional ability called defensive power. The steel had produced something far beyond an ordinary result. Shi Feng kept forging. The successful run rewarded more than his inventory. He rose to level 3, close behind the leading experts, while his forging proficiency reached 44 points. That growth was 4 to 5 times faster than the forgers supported by major guilds. Shi Feng left the rented room and went straight to the auction house. He listed 11 garrison armors without defensive power at a base price of 4 silver each. The enhanced armors and the heavy armor stayed with him. First, guilds and elite parties would taste the product. Then scarcity could raise the premium price. Sale was only half the cycle. Shi Feng opened a stall in the trade area and called for more materials. Players crowded in with stones and magic essences. For the next half hour, he bought the raw resources that would feed refinement and another round of garrison armor production. Night was approaching in God's domain when monsters grew stronger and leveling became needlessly difficult. Shi Feng needed rest as well. He still used a gaming helmet, not a pod capable of supplying nutrients and stimulating idle muscles. He opened the system interface, selected Log Off, and let the virtual marketplace dissolve. Virtual marketplace vanished. Shi Feng opened his eyes in his cramped rented apartment, where sunlight already filled the room and the air was growing warm. He removed the gaming helmet, sat up, and stretched. After more than 10 hours motionless on the bed, his entire body felt numb. He refused to remain still. Shi Feng dropped into push-ups, followed them with sit-ups, and worked through other basic movements until sensation returned. The routine was simple, yet his present body made its weakness impossible to ignore. In this era, exercise was not a hobby. Decades of research had strengthened the human body, prolonged youth, and pushed average life expectancy to 100 years. The same scientists warned that those gains demanded physical training. Society listened. Sports tournaments and fighting competitions commanded public attention. University martial arts societies flourished, while distinguished athletes drew admiration everywhere they went. In a culture like this, anyone without physical ability was dismissed. Strength had become status. Shi Feng had learned that lesson too late before. He neglected his body until it was nearly ruined, then discovered that training after his youth could recover only so much. This second life offered an earlier start. He would not waste it again. Zhao Ruoxi called and asked him to come to school. The summons struck a buried memory. She had called on this same day in his previous life, and he had dismissed the classroom matter as too small to interrupt God's domain. Back then, Shi Feng and Blackie had struggled to enter Shadow Workshop. Advancement demanded results, so Shi Feng stayed in God's domain instead of answering Zhao Ruoxi's summons. Why sacrifice precious game time for a small classroom affair? That choice erased his university recommendation. The credential could have opened better jobs and higher positions in a punishing labor market. His parents understood that. They hid their fear about the lost recommendation and the household debt, encouraging Shi Feng instead. The strain exhausted them. 1 year later, both fell gravely ill. The Shi Feng of this life, the recommendation itself was nearly useless. Preventing the same family disaster was not. His grades were average but sufficient. There was no ordinary reason to exclude him. If the answer lay in today's incident, he would be there to see it. At the university, the first warning was the crowd. Far more students filled the grounds than on an ordinary day, when most would be studying in the library or gathering elsewhere. Shi Feng moved through them toward his classroom, watching for the event his former self had missed. Shi Feng's appearance surprised the class. He almost never attended gatherings like this. After acknowledging Zhao Ruoxi, he looked for somewhere to wait. The other male students' expressions made conversation pointless, so he quietly chose a seat in the corner. Shi Feng answered the cold reception with a bitter smile. In his former life, he had failed badly at ordinary human connection. Yet poverty shaped that failure. Saving money meant skipping every gathering and class event until he became almost invisible to his peers. To them, he was simply reclusive. Whispers began around him. Why was he here? Had the class monitor actually invited him? Some called him inferior, mocked his eyes, and treated even his attention as disgusting. Weak, poor, and often bullied by other classes, Shi Feng was not a peer to them. He was an embarrassment. Contempt continued in carefully lowered voices. Shi Feng heard every word, just as his classmates intended. Their whispers preserved the appearance of discretion while making certain the poor, isolated student by the wall understood exactly where they believed he belonged. Their judgment reflected the age itself. Academic learning mattered, but a powerful body mattered more. Body training shaped status and opportunity, and Shi Feng's visibly weak condition violated that ideal. In this classroom, physical frailty alone was enough to make him an outcast. Shi Feng only laughed it off. With 10 years of hard experience behind his young face, he had no reason to rage at childish bait. He had come for one purpose: learn what had happened to the university recommendation stolen from him in the former timeline. The answer began to take shape when a robust young man entered. Ling Feilong stood an imposing 1.9 meters tall, perfectly suited to an age that worshipped trained bodies. Attention swung toward him at once, identifying the newcomer as the gathering's true center. Shi Feng remembered Ling as a man with tricks behind every smile. After graduation, he courted a large corporation's princess and became its CEO within 3 years. As virtual worlds reshaped business, he then sought out his old classmate and proposed a partnership inside God's domain. Back then, Shi Feng led Shadow, a second-rate guild that still controlled a city of 500,000. He accepted because they had been classmates. The venture enriched them both, but Ling gained more, cultivated powerful subordinates, secured a first-rate guild's favor, and abandoned Shadow. Present classroom erupted in congratulations. Ling had performed well enough in the school's fighting competition to enter the city competition, and his classmates treated that qualification like the beginning of a glorious career. Some of the young women were especially eager to win his notice. The excitement was not baseless. A city fighting slot could go to only 3 or 4 people in 10,000. A strong showing might bring a corporate spokesperson contract, advertisements, wealth, and a seemingly limitless future. In his former life, Shi Feng might have envied Ling. But Shi Feng knew where public obsession was heading. God's domain let people experience battles and wars personally without real physical danger. As its popularity rose, virtual combat would eclipse ordinary fighting spectacles, and the game's greatest experts would become the idols everyone followed. Mid the congratulations, Ling's gaze crossed the room and stopped on Shi Feng. Everyone else affirmed his status. The outcast in the corner did not. A trace of dissatisfaction entered Ling's eyes, small enough for the class to miss, but clear to the man who knew his future. Gathering's real business emerged. A recommendation holder was expected to surrender that valuable credential for Ling. Yet the students who would actually lose something did not volunteer. The loudest enthusiasm came from classmates with no recommendation rights of their own, and therefore no personal cost. When nobody offered themselves, Ling's expression darkened for an instant. Then the smile returned. Since everyone was so eager, he suggested that he should not choose the victim himself. They would raise their hands and vote. The instigators immediately praised the idea as fairness. The eager spectators stood with delight at another person's misfortune. Watching them, Shi Feng finally understood. This was it. These were the people who had stolen his recommendation, and Ling had hidden the choice inside a class vote. The mystery that brought Shi Feng here was solved. Wrath ignited beneath Shi Feng's calm exterior. In the former timeline, he had been foolish enough to work with Ling even after this. Not again. If Ling chose to make trouble for him in this life, Shi Feng would answer in kind. The unchanged vote placed him on the sacrificial throne. The class piled congratulations onto Shi Feng with smiling cruelty. Apparently, losing his recommendation was wonderful luck. With Brother Long protecting him afterward, they said, Shi Feng ought to feel grateful. Ling Feilong thanked Shi Feng with a polished smile and no gratitude behind it. Then, before Shi Feng had surrendered anything, Ling invited the entire class to celebrate at the Maple Leaf Bar after school. Hold on, Shi Feng's voice stopped the celebration. Every face turned toward the classmate they had nearly forgotten was present. Ling kept smiling and invited him to speak. Shi Feng gave Ling one cool glance. He had never agreed. Anyone eager to help Ling could surrender their own recommendation, but Shi Feng would not release his. With that settled, he prepared to leave. The classroom went dead silent. Shi Feng, the easy target bullied by other classes, had openly rebelled against Ling Feilong. The students wondered if he understood what retaliation would follow. Ling merely thought the refusal foolish. Before the standoff could end, Zhou Yuhu arrived with Qin Shuyu. Seeing them pulled an ugly history into focus. Shi Feng had once confessed to Qin, and she had rejected him before becoming Zhou's girlfriend. In the former timeline, Qin told Zhou about Shi Feng's confession. Zhou answered by having students from other classes take care of him. Even after Shi Feng joined Shadow, pointless assignments kept him from developing properly in God's domain. Ling immediately went to meet Zhou with a respectful smile. Zhou had no patience for the classroom delay. Ling promised he needed only 2 or 3 minutes to settle his business and teach Shi Feng how to behave. Zhou was already boiling. The player Yi Feng had cost him his team leader duties that day. He had only just struggled to level 2, and Brother Zhang had scolded him. Zhou never guessed Yi Feng was Shi Feng. Qin Shuyu's expression soured when she noticed Shi Feng. To her, he had neither money nor power and offered no sense of strength or security. Beside Zhou Yuhu, she considered him beneath comparison. Seeing Qin's disgust, Zhou lifted her chin with one robust hand, displaying casual possession. Then his attention shifted to Shi Feng. A cold smile spread across his face as he began walking forward. Previously, Zhou had sent other students to handle Shi Feng. Today, he intended to carve the lesson into Shi Feng's bones himself. In a society accustomed to body training, student fights and minor injuries drew little concern. This looked far worse. Witnesses could already picture the result. Shi Feng hospitalized for at least a month, collecting his graduation certificate in a cast. Nobody moved to stop it. Zhou kept coming. Then Zhao Ruoxi's delicate figure crossed into Zhou's path and blocked Shi Feng from view. Unshaken by Zhou's imposing aura, the normally gentle class monitor demanded to know what right an outsider had to bully someone from her class. Ling Feilong immediately tried to soften the threat. Smiling as though he were doing Shi Feng a favor, he told Zhao Ruoxi not to cause trouble. Zhou Yuhu only wanted to offer a few pointers, he claimed. Perhaps the class weakling would finally learn how to behave. Privately, Ling was furious that Zhao had defended someone he already considered beneath him. He had long treated her as if she belonged to him. Keeping that rage hidden, he caught her delicate hand and tried to pull her away. Zhao shook him off at once. Zhao demanded to know whether the pride of their class truly intended to watch a classmate be bullied. Until now, Ling's competition record and pleasant manner had made him seem promising. Watching him excuse Zhou stripped that image away. To her, he was nothing but a hypocrite. Ling refused to surrender the mask. Shi Feng simply did not know how to act, he said, so Zhou's lesson would help him. Enraged by the shameless answer, Zhao turned away from Ling and urgently told Shi to leave. She would stay behind and hold Zhou off herself. Zhou barely cared about Shi now. He looked Zhao over, announced that he liked her, and reached toward her face with an ugly grin. Before the intimidation could go further, Shi extended an arm and drew Zhao behind him. Then he turned Zhou's aggression back where it belonged. Sight of Shi's arm touching Zhao infuriated Ling even more. He wanted to strike immediately, yet forced himself to wait. There would be time to put Shi in his place later. For now, he stood behind his polite mask while she calmly faced the far more dangerous Zhou. Zhou laughed at Shi's nerve and proposed a wager of 1,000 credits. If she won, he could keep the money. If he lost, he would pay the same amount, kneel in front of Zhou, and apologize. The real prize Zhou wanted was public submission. He merely shook his head. 1,000 credits was such a petty wager that Zhou ought to be embarrassed to say it aloud. The insult landed perfectly. Zhou knew she was poor, so hearing the class weakling demand higher stakes angered him into laughter. He challenged Shi to name his price. She named exactly what he wanted: the Big Dipper Training Center membership card Zhou had won in the school fighting competition. In return, if she lost, he would pay Zhou 10,000 credits 1 month later. Then he pressed the final lever. If Zhou lacked the courage, they could forget the wager. He had not chosen the card for its resale value. Big Dipper was famous throughout Jin High City for its environment and comprehensive equipment, and ordinary people could not simply enter. Even basic membership was worth 8 or 9,000 credits. More importantly, access would let him begin rebuilding his body immediately. Zhou's confidence rested on one obvious weakness: a poor student like she could not produce 10,000 credits. Before that objection could kill the wager, Zhao stepped in again. She would lend Shi the money. Her backing made the promised stake real and left Zhou with no respectable excuse to retreat. She stared at Zhao in genuine surprise. He knew her family was comfortable, but not that she could risk so much money. More confusing was her faith in him. They were not close, yet she had defended him twice and now placed 10,000 credits behind his challenge. Not wanting him to misunderstand, Zhao quietly said that Zhou's arrogance simply disgusted her. She thought highly enough of Shi to want him to lose with dignity. She thanked her and promised to return twice the amount. Zhao only smiled and nodded. She did not truly expect even the original sum back. Zhou burst into delighted laughter. The card seemed a cheap price for a guaranteed victory, and Zhao's money had made the reward tangible. He could beat Shi, collect 10,000 credits, and keep pursuing the girl who had caught his eye. Licking his lips, Zhou ordered them to draw up the contract at the fighting arena. The class followed Shi Feng and Zhou Yuhu into the school's fighting arena. There, beneath the central brain's supervision, both men signed the wager they had just negotiated. This was no informal promise. Once the central brain acknowledged the contract, the agreement carried the force of law. A university fighting teacher took the judge's position. He was not merely there to declare a winner. His own fighting skill allowed him to interrupt a dangerous exchange before either student suffered heavy injury. At least, that was the arena's intended safety line. Below the ring, Shi Feng's classmates laughed. The student they normally treated as invisible had opposed Ling Feilong and angered someone even more frightening. To them, his calmness was not courage but insanity. After Zhou finished with him, they predicted Shi Feng would never know peace again. And Shuyu stared at Shi Feng and for one disorienting moment saw someone different. His composure carried a strange sense of security. Even his scrawny frame seemed larger. Then she shook the feeling away. A weakling without a single fighting technique challenging brother who was not impressive, she declared. It was reckless. One contradicted Qin. Zhou Yuhu had placed third in the university tournament and earned praise from several fighting teachers. They expected him to make a name for himself at the city tournament. Using that kind of fighter to punish the thin, supposedly untrained, Shi Feng seemed like taking a butcher's knife to a chicken. Zhao Ruoxi's anger stood out amid the mockery. Ling Feilong approached her with a gentle voice and blamed Shi Feng for causing the trouble. Since no one believed that small body could win, he called her 10,000 credits money thrown into the ocean and offered to ask Zhou to spare her, while making Shi Feng pay everything. Zhao answered that helping Shi Feng was part of being class monitor, but the money was her own decision. She had never intended to ask him for it back. Then she turned Ling's concern against him. He had taken the recommendation that rightfully belonged to Shi Feng and now stood here making cynical remarks instead of helping him. Zhao was not finished. Ling called this trading pointers, but one fighter ranked third in the entire school while the other supposedly knew no technique at all. She demanded to know whether he felt any shame saying it. Her elegant, refined presence suddenly carried such force that every word struck Ling like a blow. Recommendation was not an unlimited favor. Each class received a fixed number, normally reserved for students with academic results in the top 20. The school guaranteed recommendations to its top 5 tournament fighters, but Ling had only reached 9th. Without Shi Feng's place, the city competitor feared being exposed as a university student who lacked the credential.